Chapter 674. Boom! But at this moment, 10 terrifying auras suddenly descended. Qin Feiyong and the others looked over and saw 10 silhouettes appearing out of thin air not far away from them. There were men and women, old and young among the 10 people, and the aura they exuded was also different. But without exception, they were all war masters. Greetings, 10 great commanders. As soon as the 10 people appeared, the crowd on the streets around the Xia family knelt on the ground and kowtowed. 10 great commanders. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. The 10 great commanders glanced at the Xia family below, and their faces suddenly darkened. Swish! Then, the 10 of them looked at Qin Feiyong and the others in unison, and their eyes flashed with a shocking light. One of them stood out. This was a burly man, about 1.9 meters tall. His upper body was exposed, and his bronze-colored skin and bulging muscles were filled with a wild aura. Moreover, this person's aura was stronger than the other 9 people. The burly man looked at Qin Feiyong and the others and said in a deep voice, "Who are you? Why are you doing such a heartless thing?" Without asking for the reason, "You just said that Fat Lord is heartless. You are really the same as that old witch. In that case, Fat Lord will show you what it means to be truly heartless." Fatso laughed angrily and did not say another word. He turned around and stepped into the portal. Situ Hai coldly glanced at the 10 people and also stepped into the portal without looking back. "Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't meddle in other people's business." Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and walked in with Lu Xingqian and Wolf King. The 10 great commanders were stunned. In the face of their interrogation, not only did they not tell the truth, but they also turned around and left. And before they left, they even threatened them? This was too arrogant. After one of them came back to his senses, he immediately said angrily, "How dare they? They have no respect for the law." "Yes, we can't let them go." The others nodded in agreement. However, at this moment, the portal had already dissipated. They did not know where to find Qin Feiyong and the others. The burly man suddenly said, "Did you guys notice that the black-clothed old man and the white-clothed young man are somewhat familiar?" The black-clothed old man was referring to Situ Hai. As for the young man in white, he was referring to Qin Feiyong. The other 9 people thought about it seriously. One of the middle-aged women said in surprise, "Now that you mention it, it does seem a little familiar." Boom! At this moment, a deafening sound came from the direction of the South City. It was like a sudden clap of thunder, shaking all directions. What happened? The 10 commanders looked over, their eyes filled with bewilderment. At this moment, someone below said, "Lord Commander, I vaguely heard that they were going to the Yuan clan." What? Their expressions changed. The Yuan clan was in the South City. Could it be that the sound just now came from the Yuan clan? "Let's go and take a look," the burly man shouted. One of the commanders immediately opened a portal. "I didn't think that the Situ clan still had such a monster alive." Yeah, Xia Changfeng didn't even have the strength to fight back in front of him. His strength is truly terrifying. "I'm afraid that the continent city is going to change today." The people below began to discuss again. The Situ clan. Hearing these discussions, the eyes of the 10 commanders trembled. The burly man reached out with his hand, and a supreme force appeared. A middle-aged man on the street below instantly flew up uncontrollably and landed in front of the burly man. The burly man immediately asked, "Is the Situ clan you're talking about the one that was exterminated more than 10 years ago?" "It's the Situ clan." The middle-aged man nodded in panic. "The Situ clan still has someone alive." The burly man's expression froze. The other 9 people also looked at each other. Suddenly, one of the white-haired old men shuddered and said in surprise, "I remember now. That black-clothed old man was the steward of the Situ clan, Situ Hai." Another commander said, "I also remember. That's right, it's him. It seems that they've come for revenge." The burly man's gaze sank as he looked at the middle-aged man in front of him and asked, "Who is the monster from the Situ clan you were talking about?" The middle-aged man said, "It's that fatso. He's called Situ Tianyu. He looks to be around 20 years old, but he's even stronger than Xia Changfeng." "What? Stronger than Xia Changfeng in his 20s? The hearts of the 10 commanders shook. The middle-aged woman looked at the burly man and said, "We must hurry and capture them. Otherwise, the continent city will really change. Let's go." The burly man waved his hand and led the 9 people into the teleportation gate. The middle-aged man saw this and hurriedly called out, "Commander, wait." He wanted to tell the 10 commanders that the Situ clan had been wronged, but it was too late. The 10 of them had already entered the teleportation gate and disappeared. Back to Qin Feiyong and the others. As soon as Fatso arrived above the Yuan clan, he waved his hand. Black Dragon Battle Chi roared out and bombarded the Yuan clan. In that instant, the originally glorious and imposing Yuan clan turned into ruins. The people of the Yuan clan were also annihilated along with the destruction of the Yuan clan mansion. But they did not see the Yuan clan's ancestor appear for a long time. Fatso scanned the ruins and frowned. "Uncle Hai, how strong is old dog Yuan now?" Situ Hai said, "As far as I know, he is also a 2-star war master." "So weak?" Fatso was slightly startled, then sneered. "Then let's go to the He clan." Situ Hai frowned. "Uncle Hai, you don't know. In my current dragon warrior form, with a casual wave of my hand, I can unleash the strength of a 6-star war master. A mere 2-star war master. I'm afraid he would have already been smashed to pieces." Fatso said disdainfully. "So strong." Situ Hai's gaze trembled. He thought for a moment, then shook his head and said, "Tianyu, we still can't be careless. What if he's lucky enough to not die? Or maybe he's not at home right now and is outside. If he's outside, then there's nothing I can do now. I can only wait until later to slowly find him." After Fatso finished speaking, he waved his hand, and a black dragon battle chi shot into the ruins below like lightning. Boom! Following a loud sound, even the ruins of the Yuan clan were gone, turning into a huge sinkhole. Next, Fatso looked at Situ Hai and said, "The 10 great commanders should be here. Let's go." Upon hearing the 10 great commanders, Situ Hai did not dare to stay any longer. He immediately opened the teleportation gate and the group entered in a single file. Just as the few of them left, the 10 great commanders appeared behind them. Looking at the Yuan clan being destroyed in one day, the 10 people's faces were ashen. The tall and sturdy man shouted angrily, "Find them immediately! We must find them! Where are we going to find them?" The other 9 people had helpless looks on their faces. The continent was so big, if these people wanted to hide, it would be impossible to find them in a short period of time. Suddenly, the middle-aged woman said, "I remember that back then, other than the Yuan clan and the Xia clan, the He clan also participated in the destruction of the Situ clan. Do you think they went to the He clan?" "Yes, it's the He clan." The tall and sturdy man quivered and roared, "Quick, quick, let's go to the He clan in North City." The middle-aged woman waved her hand and opened a teleportation gate. Whoosh! The 10 of them immediately turned into streams of light and rushed into the teleportation gate. In the blink of an eye, they appeared in the sky above the He clan and immediately saw Qin Feiyong and the others standing in the void not far away. Fatso, on the other hand, was currently raising his arm and pointing his index finger at the He clan below, battle chi surging at his fingertips. At the same time, his eyes were filled with a strong cold light. Seeing Fatso's posture, the tall and sturdy man's expression changed abruptly, and he roared, "Stop!" Fatso raised his head and looked at the tall and sturdy man. He grinned and said, "Sorry, you're late." Before his voice died away, the black dragon battle chi surging at his fingertips suddenly shot out, carrying an aura of destruction as it blasted into the mansion below. Boom! A deafening loud noise suddenly resounded in this place. The He clan's mansion also occupied a very large area, and the magnificent hall showed its magnificence and extraordinariness. But in just an instant, all of this was gone. The patriarch of the He clan, the 10 elders, countless disciples, including those servants and guards, all died before they could figure out what was going on. The 10 commanders were dumbfounded. The He clan was destroyed just like that? Whoosh! The next moment, the 10 of them looked at Fatso, their eyes flashing fiercely. However, Fatty didn't pay any attention to them. His eyes were fixed on the ruins below. He was looking for the He clan's patriarch. Who did it? All of a sudden, an angry roar exploded in the ruins below. Then, a red-haired old man with disheveled hair and a dirty face soared into the sky, his entire body covered in blood. But when he saw the 10 commanders, the red-haired old man couldn't help but be stunned. Old dog he, long time no see. At this time, Fatso sneered. The red-haired old man raised his eyebrows and turned to look at Fatso. He frowned and said, "Who are you?" Fatso said with a smile, "You've seen me when I was young." Seen? The red-haired old man looked up and down at Fatso for a moment and said angrily, "Who the hell are you? Did you do all of this?" Yes, it was Fat Lord who did it. As for who Fat Lord is, Fatso's eyes turned cold. Listen carefully. Fat Lord is Situ Hong's son, Situ Tianyu. What? Situ Hong. The red-haired old man's eyes trembled. Do you remember now? Fat Lord has already destroyed the Yuan and Xia clans, and I killed Xia Chongfeng. Now it's your turn. Fatso said. You killed Xia Chongfeng? The red-haired old man was surprised. Fatso licked his lips and said with a smile, "Yes, he died very miserably." Fat Lord personally crushed his heart. "Tell me, how do you want to die?" Situ Tianyu, don't go too far. Back then, it was because your Situ clan rebelled that they were exterminated. The burly man shouted angrily. "Shut up." Fatso shouted coldly and suddenly looked at the burly man. His eyes were incomparably crazy. "What do you know? What qualifications do you have to talk nonsense here?" The burly man frowned. Whoosh. Chapter 675. The burly man frowned and looked at the patriarch of the He clan. The patriarch of the He clan felt a little guilty. He pretended to be calm and looked at Fatso. Everyone in Yunzhou knows about the Situ clan's rebellion. What do you mean by that? Old dog, you're still lying. Before Fatso could say anything, Situ Hai roared, "I didn't do anything wrong. What's there to lie about? But you killed everyone in the He clan. How are you going to settle the score?" The He clan's patriarch stared at them with a cold glint in his eyes. You. Situ Hai was so angry that smoke was coming out of his head. He framed the Situ clan and made them suffer for more than 10 years. Now, he was playing the blame game. He was so shameless. What about me? Let me tell you. If you don't give me a satisfactory explanation, don't even think about leaving. The patriarch of the He clan sneered. Old dog, I'll kill you. Situ Hai roared. He had completely lost his mind and lunged at the patriarch of the He clan. Fatso frowned. He grabbed Situ Hai's arm and shouted, "Uncle Hai, calm down." Situ Hai roared. He still won't admit it. How can I calm down? Fatso smiled. Have you forgotten? We have evidence now. He has to admit it even if he doesn't want to. That's right. We have evidence. Situ Hai shuddered. He turned to Qin Feiyang and said, "Little brother, please show us the evidence." We have evidence. The patriarch of the He clan narrowed his eyes and looked at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. He took out the image crystal and waved his hand. The recorded image appeared in the sky again. The patriarch of the He clan's face turned pale when he saw the image. The crowd gathered on the street below also roared with righteous indignation. Hidakai, how are you? Not only did you lie to all of us, but you also lied to the mansion master. How should you be punished? As soon as the image ended, the 10 great commanders looked at the patriarch of the He clan. No, I didn't do it. Xia Chongfeng is slandering me. The He clan's ancestor hurriedly shook his head. He looked at the burly man and said, "Brother Mo, you must believe me. I am innocent." The burly man shouted, "The evidence is conclusive, and you're still quibbling. You're really stubborn. Take him down." The other 9 commanders nodded and immediately surrounded the He clan's patriarch. Seeing this, the old ancestor of the He family panicked. Suddenly, he turned to look at Fatso and roared, "Little bastard, even if I die, I'll drag you down with me." Boom. His aura erupted as he charged towards Fatso without looking back. His eyes were brimming with killing intent. 3-star war sect? Fatso was startled for a moment before he disdainfully said, You're a bit stronger than that trash Xia Changfeng, but if you want to drag Fat Lord down with you, you're still lacking. He took a step forward, advancing instead of retreating. Die! When the two of them met, they roared at the same time and punched each other with all their might. Boom! Ah! The two fists fiercely collided. Xia Changfeng screamed miserably and was sent flying on the spot. Following closely, his body exploded in the air, and blood dyed the sky red. So strong. The pupils of the 10 commanders shrank. A mere 2-star war sect had actually killed a 3-star war sect in an instant? This was too crazy. However, they did not know that Fatso, in his dragon warrior state, could unleash the strength of a 6-star war sect with just a raise of his hand. Although the He family's ancestor was a 3-star war sect, because he was too impatient earlier, he did not use any battle arts. With just his flesh and blood, how could he be a match for Fatso? However, after killing the He family's ancestor, Fatso's killing intent did not dissipate, because he still had his greatest enemy. That was the Cloud State Palace Chief. However, he also knew that with his current strength, he was still not a match for the Cloud State Palace Chief. Who? Taking a deep breath, he turned around and landed beside Qin Feiyang, smiling. Boss, we can go now. Qin Feiyang nodded. You are not allowed to leave. However, at this moment, the tall and sturdy man waved his hand, and the 9 commanders immediately surrounded Qin Feiyang and the others. Why? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Although the He family, Yuan family, and Xia family framed the Situ family in the early years, you have violated the rules of the state capital by killing so many people in the state capital. You must wait for the palace chief to return and personally decide. Please rest assured that the palace chief will handle this impartially, the tall and sturdy man said. Haha, that old witch will handle this impartially? Are you joking? The fatty laughed out loud. His laughter was full of sarcasm. The tall and sturdy man's face darkened as he shouted, Don't be rude to the palace chief. Humph. Calling her an old witch, Fat Lord has already shown mercy. If you really want to say it, she's not even as good as an idiot. She's simply an idiot. Fatso coldly snorted. His words were merciless. Killing intent flashed in the tall and sturdy man's eyes as he waved his hand and said, Take him down. Boom. The aura of the 9 great commanders exploded. At this moment, Lu Xingqian's mind moved, and the group instantly disappeared without a trace. Where did he go? The 9 great commanders were shocked and hurriedly scanned the void around them. The tall and sturdy man was also bewildered. How could they disappear into thin air? No. He seemed to have heard of such a situation before. It's him. All of a sudden, the tall and sturdy man exclaimed as a strong cold light burst out from his eyes. Who? The other 9 great commanders looked at him in shock. Qin Feiyang. The tall and sturdy man said word by word, Yes, it's him. No wonder I found him familiar. I didn't expect him to be so bold as to come to Yun State to cause trouble. The 9 commanders also came to a sudden realization. According to the palace chief, Qin Feiyang's hiding treasure can't be moved. It must still be here. Watch carefully. I'll inform the palace chief immediately. As the tall and sturdy man spoke, he took out an image crystal and infused his battle chi into it. After a while, the illusory figure of the Yun State Mansion Master appeared. The palace chief looked at the tall and sturdy man and frowned. What are you doing? The tall and sturdy man said, My lord, Qin Feiyang and the others came to Yun State and destroyed the He, Xia, and Yuan families. What? The palace chief was enraged and shouted, Why didn't you stop them? My lord, it's not that I didn't stop them, but they were too fast. We couldn't stop them in time. The tall and sturdy man smiled bitterly. Trash. The palace chief scolded and shouted, Where are they now? The tall and sturdy man said, They're hiding in that hiding treasure now. The palace chief was overjoyed and nodded. Very good. You guys stay there and guard. I'll go back immediately. Yes. The tall and sturdy man responded respectfully and turned off the image crystal. His eyes were filled with killing intent. In a secret chamber, Qin Feiyang and the others stood side by side and looked at the image in front of them. This was Lu Xingqian's space divine item. They had not left, so they saw the message between the tall and sturdy man and the palace chief clearly. Lu Xingqian stared at the tall and sturdy man in the image and frowned. Brother Qin, why do I feel that there's something wrong with this man? I have the same feeling too. Qin Feiyang nodded thoughtfully. He turned to Situ Hai and asked, Who is he? Situ Hai said, His name is Emo Jun, the father of the Emo family's patriarch. The Emo family? Qin Feiyang frowned and said, Is there someone called Emo Wuxian in the Emo family? Yes. Emo Jun is Emo Wuxian's grandfather, Situ Hai said. No wonder. Qin Feiyang suddenly came to a realization, and the corners of his mouth pursed into a sneer. Wolf King said, Little Qin Zi, I caught a trace of murderous intent in his eyes just now. It might be directed at us. It's not a possibility, it's a fact. Because Emo Wuxian died in our hands. Once he has the chance, he will definitely come after us. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. That's not right. We just came back from the 9 underworlds. Emo Wuxian and the others all died in there. Emo Jun couldn't have received the news so quickly. Fatso said suspiciously, Don't forget, Wan Xiu and Feng Wuxia are still alive. And Tan Wu, when he returns to Yi Province, he will definitely tell us the truth. Apart from Feng Province and Yu Province, the people from the other provinces basically died in our hands. Think about it. When the palace chiefs of He Province, Kong Province, and Serene Province learn about this from Tan Wu and the others, won't they hate us? So, they will definitely tell these things to the palace chiefs of the other provinces as soon as possible. That's why the palace chiefs of the 9 provinces came to our spiritual state one after another. Lu Xingqian smiled faintly. That makes sense. Fatso nodded. But what puzzles me is, why did the palace chiefs of Feng Province and Yu Province come to our spiritual state? To join in the fun? Lu Xingqian frowned. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, When we go back and see the old master, we'll know when we ask him. Okay. Lu Xingqian nodded and looked at Qin Feiyang, asking, What about now? Do we go back or continue to observe? Qin Feiyang said, Let's wait a little longer. I want to know how they plan to deal with us. Spiritual state. At the Palace Master's mansion, at this moment, the Yunzhou Palace Master was standing in the conference hall, raging at the old master. Old man Run, you heard it all. This is the young man of your spiritual state. He's simply lawless. She was about to explode in anger. After learning about the death of Emo Wuxian and the others, she was already furious. She thought to herself that this time, she must make Qin Feiyang pay the price. But she never expected that as soon as she came to the spiritual state, this Qin Feiyang would actually go and raid her nest? This was too much. Then, he looked at the old man. His head was lowered, and his brows were tightly knitted together. He did not say a single word. Previously, when Emo Jun sent a message to the Yunzhou Palace Master, the Yunzhou Palace Master didn't avoid it. So he heard it all. Not only did he hear it, but the other palace masters in the conference hall also heard it, and were all in disbelief. Because they all knew that the Xia family, the He family, and the Yuan family were super families in Yunzhou. Moreover, the ancestors of the 3 families were highly valued by the Yunzhou Palace Master, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they were his right-hand men. But this Qin Feiyang actually destroyed the 3 great clans in an instant. Wasn't this clearly going against the Cloud State's Mansion Master? Chapter 676. Seeing that the old man was silent, the Yunzhou Mansion Master quickly lost his patience and shouted, Say something. Don't think that silence will solve this. The old man looked up at her, and then lowered his head in silence again. To be honest, he was very angry now. He even wanted to call Qin Feiyang over and give Qin Feiyang a few slaps. Wasn't this causing trouble for him? Couldn't they just stop? Old man Run, this is not a small matter. You can't cover up for Qin Feiyang anymore. Yes, if you don't deal with it impartially today, we will report it to the emperor and ask him to make a decision. The 2 white-haired old men said one after another. One of them was the Kunzu Mansion Master, and the other was the Changzhou Mansion Master. Their purpose of coming to the spiritual state was naturally to settle the score with Qin Feiyang, because the blonde and green-haired young men were forced to jump into the sea of misery by Qin Feiyang. The old man raised his eyebrows and suddenly stood up. He looked at the Cloud State's manor head and said, "This old man will go with you to Cloud State to investigate this matter thoroughly. If Qin Feiyang really killed the innocent, this old man will definitely not protect him." "I was waiting for you to say that." The Yunzhou mansion master sneered, opened a portal, and stepped aside. He looked at the old man and said, "Please." The old man snorted and strode into the portal. The Yunzhou mansion master looked at the others and smiled. "Everyone, why don't you come to Yunzhou for a visit?" "That's what I was thinking." The Kunzu mansion master nodded and smiled. Then, the group of giants stepped into the portal one after another. Yunzhou, above the He family. Seeing the old man appear, Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other. Why did the old man come in person? The old man glanced at the ruins below and shouted, "Qin Feiyang, come out. What should we do?" Fatso was a little flustered. Wolf King rolled his eyes at him and said, "We have evidence in our hands. What are you afraid of?" Fatso said in realization, "Yes, what am I afraid of?" At the same time, the Yun State Mansion Master and the others appeared one after another. Seeing the He clan in ruins, they couldn't help but frown. The Yunzhou Manor Lord looked around and shouted, "Qin Feiyang, I know you're still here. Stop hiding and come out." "Who said I was going to hide?" Before he could finish his words, Qin Feiyang's faint laughter rang out. Next, Qin Feiyang and the others appeared in front of the old man out of thin air. "Lu Xingqian is here too?" The old man frowned and looked at Qin Feiyang angrily. "Tell me, what's going on?" Qin Feiyang shrugged and said, "I didn't do it. It was Fatso." The old man then looked at Fatso. Fatso said, "I'm here for revenge." "Revenge?" The old master frowned. Fatso had told him about this before, so he also knew that the Situ clan was wronged. But there was no evidence. Who would believe it? Fatso looked at the Yunzhou Manor Lord and sneered, "Old witch, don't you feel guilty at all? Who are you talking to? Did you eat a leopard's guts?" The Yunzhou Manor Lord's face was gloomy. He actually called her an old witch in front of so many people. Was he deliberately embarrassing her? "What? Are you upset that I called you an old witch? Then can Fat Lord call you an idiot?" The fatty's face was full of mockery. "You're courting death." The Cloud State Manor Lord was enraged. A terrifying aura surged towards Fatty. But then, the old man waved his hand and blocked the pressure of the Yunzhou Manor Lord. He said in a deep voice, "No one is allowed to do anything before the matter is clarified." The Yunzhou Manor Lord said angrily, "The truth is right in front of us. What else is there to investigate?" "The truth? What right do you have to say that?" Back then, the Xia clan, Yuan clan, and He clan worked together to frame the Situ clan. "Why didn't you investigate the truth?" Fatso shouted. The Yunzhou Manor Lord raised his eyebrows and asked, "What do you mean?" "You don't know. To think that you're the Manor Lord of a state. You're just an old fool." "Fat Lord, let me tell you, the Situ clan has never had the intention to rebel." Fatso sneered. The Yunzhou Manor Lord said angrily, "Nonsense." Fatso said, "If Fat Lord is not talking nonsense, are you going to repent in front of the graves of my parents and clansmen?" Emojun's expression changed slightly when he heard that. He hurriedly said, "Sir, shut up for this seat." The Yunzhou Manor Lord shouted coldly. He looked at Fatso and said, "If the Situ clan is really wronged, I have nothing to say even if you kowtow and apologize, let alone repent." Emojun sighed in his heart. Initially, he wanted to tell the Yunzhou Manor Lord the truth. However, the furious Yunzhou Manor Lord did not give him a chance to speak at all. This was great. He was looking for trouble for himself. At the same time, Fatso looked at the Yunzhou Manor Lord in surprise and asked, "Do you mean what you say?" The Yunzhou Manor Lord said angrily, "Nonsense. I'm the Manor Lord of a state. How can I go back on my words?" Fatso laughed. Qin Feiyang and the others laughed as well. Then, Qin Feiyang waved his hand and took out the image crystal. The image recorded in the image crystal immediately unfolded in the void in front of them. "This The Yunzhou manor lord was dumbfounded. How was this possible? The old man was all smiles and secretly gave Qin Feiyang and the others a thumbs up. Moreover, the old man also secretly sent a voice transmission to them. As long as they had evidence, there was nothing to be afraid of. The Feng State manor lord sighed. I didn't expect the Situ family to be framed. What a pity. The old man glanced at the Feng State manor lord and nodded. Yes, the Situ family was loyal and devoted, but in the end, they all died an unnatural death. However, those despicable villains are still alive today. Whose fault is this? The other manor lords all looked at the Yunzhou manor lord. The Yunzhou manor lord's old face was livid and red. He wished he could find a hole to hide in. At the same time, he looked at Emo Jun angrily. Can you blame me for this? You didn't want me to say it? Emo Jun was helpless. Fatso sneered. Old witch, do you feel guilty now? Is it wrong for Fat Lord to seek revenge? The Yunzhou manor lord was silent. What else could she say? She had already lost face. The old man said, I think this matter should be reported to the emperor. Let him see how foolish the Yunzhou manor lord is. The other manor lords were shocked. This matter was not a big deal, but it was not a small one either. If they did not make a fuss about it, the emperor would not care. However, if they did, the consequences would be severe. The Yunzhou manor lord alone would definitely be removed from his position and investigated. He might even be executed on the spot. In other words, this old man Ren was determined to get rid of the Yunzhou manor lord. The Yunzhou manor lord was also shocked. He stared at the old man in shock and anger. Did I say something wrong? Even the emperor is punished the same as the commoners when he breaks the law, let alone us manor lords. The old man said lightly. The Yunzhou manor lord's eyes turned cold. He shouted, Old man, don't go too far. Am I? I'm just stating a fact. The old man sneered. Old man Ren, we're all old friends. Why do you have to be so ruthless? Yes, let's forgive and forget. I think we should just let this matter go. If there's no other way, let her compensate the Situ family. The other manor lords tried to persuade the old man. The old man frowned and turned to look at Fatso. He asked, What do you think? Fatso shook his head and said, I don't want any compensation. I don't want this old witch to kowtow and apologize in front of the graves of my family members because she doesn't deserve it. I just want her to announce to the world that the Situ family is innocent. That's reasonable. Everyone nodded and looked at the Yunzhou manor lord. The Yunzhou manor lord lowered his head, and his expression was uncertain. It was easy to announce to the world. She just needed to give the order. However, once she announced to the world, the entire Yunzhou manor would know that she had done something stupid. By then, many people would curse her behind her back. In short, once this matter was announced to the world, she would lose her dignity and reputation. The old man said meaningfully, Is your life more important or your reputation more important? You have to think carefully. The Yunzhou manor lord's eyes trembled. He gritted his teeth and said, Okay, I'll announce to the world later. Now, Fatso said without any room for discussion. Okay. The Yunzhou manor lord looked coldly at Fatso and shouted, Emo Jun, go and do it immediately. It was obvious that the Yunzhou manor lord was on the verge of exploding. Yes. The 10 commanders responded respectfully and immediately turned to leave. After the 10 commanders left, the Kunzu manor lord said, Now that the Situ family's matter is settled, let's talk about the 9th level of hell. Senior, I'm confused. In the 9th level of hell, everyone relies on their own abilities. What else is there to talk about? Qin Feiyang looked at the Kunzu manor lord in confusion. Yes, it does depend on one's own abilities. But the people of Kunzu have already reached the other side. Why do you still force them to jump into the sea of bitterness? The Kunzu manor lord shouted. And my Changzhou. The Changzhou manor lord's face was as dark as water. Qin Feiyang thought for a while and asked, Seniors, are you talking about the golden-haired and green-haired people? Golden-haired? Green-haired? Don't they have names? Are you that ill-mannered? The Kunzu manor lord was furious. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed coldly as he smiled and said, I'm sorry. My father died early and didn't teach me anything about manners. Besides, I really don't know their names, and I'm not interested in knowing. The two immediately clenched their fists, and their eyes were frighteningly gloomy. If you ask me, you're just jealous of the victory of the spiritual state. That's right. Those two good-for-nothings and Imo Wuxian were killed by us. But do you know what they did to us? Qin Feiyong sneered. The other manor lords were silent. You don't know? Let me tell you. At that time, Imo Wuxian and those two good-for-nothings reached the other side before us. Guess what? They immediately attacked and killed us. You have to know that we were still in the sea of bitterness, and except for me, everyone else was confused by the illusion. May I ask everyone, is this method of theirs vicious or not? If it weren't for our brilliant methods, we would have been buried in the sea of bitterness. I'm just like that. If you don't provoke me, I don't want to provoke you either. But if anyone provokes me, even if they're God, I won't let them off easily. Chapter 677. The hearts of the authorities present shuddered. Whether it was courage or courage, this man was far beyond his peers. If he didn't die prematurely, he would definitely become a great figure in the future. No, you're lying. Suddenly, the Yuzhou prefecture governor said, Behave atrociously? Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and turned to look at the Yuzhou prefecture governor. Senior, what do you mean? The Yuzhou prefecture governor said, Wanqiu told me in person that you were jealous of Imo Wuxian and the others who reached the Nirvana realm first. So you killed them? Qin Feiyong was stunned and asked, Are you sure it was Wanqiu who said it? Of course. Don't tell me that I'm going to start a rumor and create trouble. The Yuzhou prefecture governor said angrily. Qin Feiyong immediately looked at Lu Xingqian with a cold light in his eyes. If it weren't for Lu Xingqian who interceded for Wanqiu would have been dead. How could he have the chance to sow discord? Lu Xingqian also frowned and looked quite angry. Seeing that Qin Feiyong didn't say anything, the Yuzhou prefecture governor sneered. Are you speechless because your lie has been exposed? What a joke. Although I, Qin Feiyong, am not a good person, I have always been upright. Whereas this Wanqiu is narrow-minded and two-faced. You actually still believe his nonsense, truly laughable to the extreme. Qin Feiyong was so angry that he laughed. What did you say? The Yuzhou prefecture governor's eyes darkened. What? Did I touch your sore spot? It seems that the people of Yuzhou are really like Wanqiu, including you. Qin Feiyong sneered. How dare you? The Yuzhou prefecture governor was furious. He roared and pounced on Qin Feiyong. But at this time, the Fengzhou prefecture lord stepped forward and stood in front of Qin Feiyong, blocking the pressure of the Yuzhou prefecture lord. What are you doing? The tranquil state prefecture master asked angrily. My apologies. Unlike you, I didn't come here to make trouble for Qin Feiyong, Feng State's chief said with a smile. Then what are you doing here? The governor of Yuzhou province frowned. The governor of Yun State and the others looked at the governor of Feng State in confusion. Me. The governor of Feng State narrowed his eyes and said, I'm here to settle accounts with Yunzhou, Kunzu, and Changzhou. What do you mean? The chiefs of Yun State, Kuan State, and Chang State could not help but frown. And me. At this moment, the Yu State prefecture lord also stood out and looked at the Yun State prefecture lord and the other two with hostility. Qin Feiyong smiled and said, There are still good people in this world. Lu Xingqian said, That's right. Compared to some shameless old fogies, these two seniors are more worthy of respect. Stop flattering me. We won't fall for your tricks. Hearing their words, the Feng State prefecture lord and the Yu State prefecture lord could not help but roll their eyes. Then, the Feng State prefecture lord looked at the three of them and said in a deep voice, As far as I know, the truth is as Qin Feiyong said. Wanqiu is lying. The tranquil state prefecture lord said angrily, Don't make irresponsible remarks. I'm making irresponsible remarks? Let me tell you, when Wanqiu and the other two killed Qin Feiyong, Zhao Yu and Luodan from Feng State were also there, and if it weren't for Qin Feiyong's help, they would have been buried in the sea of bitterness. You must give me an explanation for this matter today. The Feng State prefecture lord shouted. The Yu State prefecture lord said, Ling Yu and Feng Ranran from Yu State were also there, Everyone looked at the tranquil state prefecture lord. Was Wan Xiu really lying? The old master said, in my opinion, why don't we call Wan Xiu here and confront him face to face? Qin Feiyang said lightly, we should have called that trash here long ago. Then we wouldn't have to waste so much time. But before his voice died away, the Crane State Prefecture Lord said, there's no need to confront him. I can prove that Wan Xiu is lying. Everyone looked at the Crane State Prefecture Lord again. The Crane State Prefecture Lord said, what Tenwu of Crane State reported to me is exactly the same as what Qin Feiyang said. The Tranquil State Prefecture Lord said angrily, then why didn't you say so earlier? I didn't want to say. That's because our He province's people were all killed by Qin Feiyang and them, but there was no other way. Before I left, Tanwu begged me again and again, telling me to distinguish between public and private affairs. The Crane State Prefecture Lord sighed. He really couldn't figure out what Qin Feiyang did to make Tanwu defend him like this. Distinguish between public and private affairs. Hearing the Crane State Prefecture Lord's words, the Kong State Prefecture Lord couldn't help but feel ashamed. Fine. I'll also distinguish between public and private affairs for once. What Feng Wuxia and Xuaning told me when they came back is the same as what Qin Feiyang said. The Kong State Prefecture Lord said. Obviously, he didn't want to tell the truth. Damn bastard. How dare you lie to me? See how I'll deal with you when I get back. The Tranquil State Prefecture Lord was furious. Now do you see Wan Xiu's character clearly? Of course, I also understand that I can't blame you for this matter, because it's not that you're too stupid. It's because Wan Xiu is too cunning. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Hearing Qin Feiyang's words, the Tranquil State Prefecture Lord's face eased a lot. There was even a hint of a smile. He thought that although this kid was arrogant, he still respected him and knew to give him a way out. But when he heard the last sentence, his old face suddenly turned green and red. This was a disguised insult to him. This little bastard was simply going too far. But now, he was in the wrong. What could he do? If the old man wasn't here, he could still teach Qin Feiyang a lesson. But now, the old man was watching from the side and wouldn't give him the chance. He looked at Qin Feiyang gloomily and said coldly, I hope you can always be so lucky. How could Qin Feiyang not hear such sarcasm? But he didn't take it to heart at all. He cupped his hands and said with a smile, Thank you for your kind words, senior. Humph. The Tranquil State Prefecture Lord snorted coldly, opened a portal, and walked in without looking back. He didn't have the face to continue staying in this place. After that, the Prefecture Lords of Kuan Prefecture and Changzhou also opened the portal reluctantly and left one after another. But the Prefecture Lords of He Prefecture, Kong Prefecture, Feng Prefecture, and Yu Prefecture didn't leave. Qin Feiyang looked at the Prefecture Lords of He Prefecture and Kong Prefecture and cupped his hands. First of all, I would like to thank the two seniors for helping me out. Secondly, I'll say the same thing. In the Netherworld, everyone relies on their own means. If it's just because of this matter, then I'll give you a piece of advice. In the future, you'd better not participate in the Battle of the 9 Prefectures, because at that time, there will still be people who will die. The implication was that one should be able to afford to lose. If one couldn't afford to lose, then don't gamble. If one couldn't afford to lose, then one had to gamble. This was their own problem. Hearing this, the Prefecture Lords of He Prefecture and Kong Prefecture looked at each other and sighed at the same time. As the masters of a prefecture, how could they not understand these principles? But in their hearts, they were unwilling. In the end, the two didn't say anything more. They opened the portal, turned around, and left silently. The Prefecture Lord of Feng Prefecture said with a smile, Little brother, we're leaving too. When you enter the imperial capital, you must get along well with Zhao Yu and the others. The Prefecture Lord of Yu Prefecture also smiled. Qin Feiyang nodded and cupped his hands. Seniors, take care. The two smiled, opened a portal each, and left quickly. In this way, only the old man, Qin Feiyang, and the Prefecture Lord of Yun Prefecture were left here. The old man glanced at the Prefecture Lord of Yun Prefecture, opened a portal and said with a smile, Let's go too. Wait. But at this moment, the Prefecture Lord of Yun Prefecture hurriedly shouted, Is there anything else? The old man glanced at her indifferently. The prefecture lord of Yun Prefecture ignored the old man and looked directly at Fatso. Although I killed your clansman by mistake, you are still a person of Yun Prefecture. Now that the misunderstanding has been resolved, isn't it time for you to return to your roots? Return to my roots? Fatso was slightly stunned and looked at the prefecture lord of Yun Prefecture strangely. At the same time, the old man raised his eyebrows and said angrily, "Old man, this is your fault." The prefecture lord of Yun Prefecture said angrily, "Is it wrong for me to let him return to his roots?" It's not wrong to let him return to his roots, but your fault is that you have bad intentions. If he didn't pass the 9 states tournament, if he didn't have the achievements he has today, would you have let him stay in Yun Prefecture? Obviously not. The old man sneered. The prefecture lord of Yun Prefecture remained silent. Let me tell you, although Fatso was born in Yun Prefecture, he has always lived in the spiritual state. Besides, he is an inner palace disciple of the spiritual state, and it was the spiritual state that trained him. Now you want to sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor? No way. Feiyong, let's go. The old man waved his hand and walked into the portal first. Lu Xingchen and Qin Feiyong also walked in. But Fatso looked at the city below with a complicated expression. Situ Hai glanced at Fatso and said with a smile, "Tianyu, I won't force you to make any decision. Just do what you think." In fact, Situ Hai really wanted Fatso to return to his roots. Because if Fatso chose to stay in Yun Prefecture, the Situ family would definitely rise again. It might even surpass the glory of more than a decade ago. But he also knew that Fatso's heart was no longer in Yun Prefecture. "Uncle Hai, thank you." Fatso looked at Situ Hai gratefully. He clenched his hands tightly and said with determination, "I swear that in the future, there will be a place for the Situ family in the imperial capital." With that, Fatso turned around and stepped into the portal. The imperial capital. Situ Hai's eyes trembled, and he couldn't calm down for a long time. It turned out that this child's goal was the imperial capital, but it made sense. With this child's talent and ability, Yun Prefecture could no longer accommodate him. "Good luck, child." He looked up in the direction of the spiritual state and murmured to himself with a gratified smile on his old face. At the same time, seeing Fatso leave without any hesitation, the Yunzhou mansion master couldn't help but feel angry, but she didn't say anything. She looked at Situ Hai and said with a smile, "You can stay in the city from now on. I'll arrange a place for you to rebuild the Situ family." She couldn't stop Fatso from leaving. Therefore, she could only settle for the next best thing, which was Situ Hai. As long as Situ Hai stayed in the city, it was equivalent to tying Fatso and Yun Prefecture together. But Situ Hai was not tempted by the Yunzhou mansion master's temptation. "No need. I'm old and don't have the energy. As long as you don't disturb my peaceful life." With that, Situ Hai opened a portal. Seeing this, the Yunzhou mansion master was furious and sneered. "Do you really think that the Situ family can have a place in the imperial capital? Don't be naive." "I believe in Tianyu," Situ Hai said with a smile. Then, he walked into the portal without looking back. Looking at the portal that disappeared, the Yunzhou mansion master clenched his fists and shouted, "Imo Jun, come here immediately." She was already humble enough, but she was still rejected. This was infuriating. Whoosh. Soon, Imo Jun flew over and bowed. "My lord, what are your orders?" The Yunzhou mansion master said, "Go and look for him immediately. You must find Situ Hai's hiding place." Imo Jun said in shock, "My lord, are you going to kill Situ Hai?" The Yunzhou mansion master sneered, "If I really wanted to kill him, I would have done it earlier." Imo Jun frowned and said, "I don't understand. Since you're not going to kill him, why do you still want to find out where he's hiding? I was the one who ordered the destruction of the Situ family back then. Do you think Fatso will let me go? Now, it's because he's not strong enough. One day, when his strength surpasses mine, he'll definitely come and settle the score with me. At that time, Situ Hai will be an important bargaining chip in my hand." The Yunzhou mansion master said with a chilling smile. Imo Jun came to a realization and bowed. "My lord, you're wise. I also have a request. If that day really comes, please kill Qin Feiyong and avenge my grandson, Imo Wushan." "I will." Chapter 678. Spiritual State. In a courtyard of the mansion master's mansion, the old man sat in the pavilion and looked at Qin Feiyong and the others with a livid face. Qin Feiyong and the others stood in front of the old man obediently, not daring to even breathe loudly. Haha, suddenly, old Master Li laughed in relief. They looked at each other. They all thought that the old man was going to punish them, but he laughed instead. Fatso whispered, "Do you think the old man is having a stroke?" "You're the one who's having a stroke." The old man stopped laughing and glared fiercely at the fatty, saying, "I laughed because I remembered the faces of the Yun State Manor Lord and the other old bastards back then. So, it doesn't mean that I'm not angry." Fatso pursed his lips. "It's not our fault. Why are you angry? Still complaining? This matter is indeed not your fault. But before you go to Yunzhou, shouldn't you inform me first? Do you know how worried I was when I heard that you were causing trouble in Yunzhou?" The old man said angrily. They scratched their heads and laughed awkwardly. "But fortunately, you're smart enough to get the evidence first. Otherwise, even I can't protect you today." The old man snorted. Fatso said proudly, "Of course, we never do things that we're not sure of." "Forget it." The old man rolled his eyes at him and said, "This matter is over. So this old man won't pursue it anymore. However, this old man hopes that you won't cause any more trouble for me before we enter the imperial capital." "Yes." The few of them stood up straight and replied respectfully. Looking at their serious faces, the old man couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. He looked at Fatso and said, "Do you still want to kill the Yunzhou mansion master?" Fatso nodded without hesitation. "I won't persuade you because she deserves it, but you have to act according to your strength. After all, she's not simple." The old man reminded. Fatso said, "I understand. It's good that you know." The old man smiled and waved his hand. "You can go now. The previous mansion lord has already gone to the imperial capital to report the situation of the Great War of the 9 States to the emperor. I estimate that she will come and take you to the imperial capital in a few days. Do what you need to do. Don't leave behind any regrets." "All right." Qin Feiyong and the others nodded. But just as they turned around, the old man said, "Qin Feiyong, wait a moment before you leave. This old man has a few words to say to you." Qin Feiyong was stunned. He nodded and said to Fatso and Wolf King, "You guys go to Uncle Yan's place. I'll find you later." "All right." Fatso nodded. He immediately opened the portal and left with Wolf King. Lu Xingqian also returned to the inner hall. Qin Feiyong turned to look at the old man and said with a smile, "Don't tell me you want me to take good care of my sister again." The old man rolled his eyes and sighed. "This old man only has one granddaughter. I really can't rest assured. And this old man can't trust the others. I can only rely on you." Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and said, "Don't worry, I will take good care of her. With your words, this old man can rest assured. One more thing. Can you tell me the whereabouts of your Uncle Ren now?" The old man looked at him nervously. "This?" Qin Feiyong hesitated. After a moment, he said with a smile, "He is in the canyon below the ruins." "What?" The old man suddenly stood up, his eyes full of shock. "Don't worry, he will be fine. As for why he is there, I promised him that I won't tell anyone, including you," Qin Feiyong said. "A person must keep his word. This old man understands. Actually, this old man doesn't really care about the reason. I just want to know that he is safe." The old man said with a smile. Qin Feiyong was stunned. He smiled bitterly and said, "You are really indifferent." The old man shook his head and said, "It can't be helped. I am old, and there are many things that I can't do. Go about your business." Qin Feiyong looked at the old man deeply. He turned around and opened a portal. Just as he was about to walk in, he suddenly thought of something and turned to the old man and asked, "After you retire, do you plan to let Wang Hong take over the position of mansion master?"
Yes.
"His ability is the strongest among all the commanders. Most importantly, he is just like this old man. He has a just and fair heart." This old man has already asked the previous mansion master to recommend him to the emperor. The old man said with a smile. Qin Feiyong nodded and didn't stay any longer. He turned around and stepped into the portal. After arriving at the sacred hall, He drank with Yin Nanshan until evening. Only then did Qin Feiyang leave with Fatso and Wolf King. Following that, they went to visit Lu Yun and chatted until late into the night. When they returned to the inner hall, most of the inner hall disciples had gone to cultivate. There was dead silence everywhere. In the sky, the full moon hung high in the sky, and the stars twinkled. Under the moonlight, the entire inner hall seemed to be covered in a layer of silver. 2 men and 1 wolf stood above the Pill Fire Hall and scanned the mountains and rivers below. Fatso asked, "Boss, do you remember how long we have been in the state capital?" "I've been too busy. I can't remember." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "That's right. I've been so busy that I can't even remember the time. It's obvious how much we have experienced here. To be honest, we are about to leave. I really can't bear to leave." Fatso sighed. "How pretentious." Wolf King rolled his eyes. "It's not pretentious. It's emotional. Because once we leave, we don't know when we will return." It was rare that Fatso didn't bicker with Wolf King. His brows were filled with sadness. "Then stay here and take a good look. Give me the herbs. I'll refine the pills." Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile. "The herbs are with Lu Hong." Fatso responded and asked with a voice transmission, "Boss, aren't you going to visit the mermaid princess?" Qin Feiyang's body stiffened. Fatso said, "It's been so many years. I'm sure she misses you. Even I can't see any hope. How can I give her hope?" Qin Feiyang laughed self-deprecatingly. He shook off Fatso's hand and stepped into the air without looking back. The Wolf King glanced at Qin Feiyang's back and said angrily, "I say, you damn fatty, why do you have to bring it up? Did Fat Lord say something wrong? Boss actually likes the mermaid princess very much." Fatso snorted through his nose. "You're right. Little Qin Zi does have feelings for the mermaid princess, but you also know that he doesn't dare to face this feeling now. So, don't mention this again in the future. When he finishes all his grudges in the capital, he will naturally go to her." Wolf King said. "Got it." Fatso nodded. After pondering for a while, he said, "I guess the biggest problem for Boss now is Yi." "That's right. This little girl is indeed a headache." Wolf King sighed. "If it's up to Fat Lord, just accept them all. Anyway, Boss is the future emperor of the great Qin Empire. It's normal for him to have many wives and concubines." Fatso said. Wolf King rolled his eyes at him and said, "Love is not as simple as you say. Let nature take its course. It's really troublesome. Tell me, why do we have to be in love?" Fatso wondered. "Damn, I'm not human. How would I know?" Wolf King cursed angrily. Suddenly, he stared at a place below and said in surprise, "Isn't that Lu Xingqian and Shen Mei?" Fatso was stunned and hurriedly asked, "Where? Where?" Wolf King pointed to the square outside the cultivation hall and said, "There." Fatso hurriedly looked over and found Lu Xingqian and Shen Mei at the edge of the square. Why are the two of them stuck together? And in the middle of the night? It's not normal. Fatso thought for a while and said with a smile, "Do you want to go take a look?" "Of course." Wolf King smiled sinisterly. Then, 1 man and 1 wolf stealthily sneaked in that direction. Pill Fire Hall. Pill Refining Room 1. This was originally Dongfang Wuhan's pill refining room, but now that he was dead, it naturally fell to Qin Feiyang. After wandering around the pill refining room a few times, Qin Feiyang entered the castle and looked at Lu Hong with a smile. "Have you sorted out the herbs you swept in the Butterfly Valley?" "Yes." Lu Hong nodded. Qin Feiyang asked with a smile, "What's the result?" "I've collected 2 portions of 9-turn dragon blood pills. Now, I'm only missing 2 portions of dragon blood. I've also collected 3 portions of spirit sea pills. There are 4 portions of essence soul pills. There are also a lot of herbs for potential pills, 9 Shu yellow dragon pills, and red fire-colored glass pills. In short, it's not bad," Lu Hong said with a smile. Qin Feiyang was overjoyed. This was not just not bad, it was a great harvest. "I've also divided the herbs Yin Yuanming gave us. According to the 3070, for the 3,000 portions of red fire-colored glass pills, we should have 900 portions. For the 500 portions of potential pills, we should have 150 portions. For the rest of the pills, We should have 30,000 portions each. I've put all the herbs in this chinkuan bag. As Lu Hong spoke, she took out a chinkuan bag from her arms. Qin Feiyang looked at the chinkuan bag and said with a smile, "Keep these herbs first and give them to me when I need them." Okay. Lu Hong put away the chinkuan bag and took out another chinkuan bag, saying, "The herbs in here are all for Yin Yuanming. There are a lot of them. I'm afraid it will take at least half a month." Half a month? Qin Feiyang frowned. Yes. 2,100 portions of red fire-colored glass pills, 350 portions of potential pills. As for the other pills, such as healing pills, bone-replenishing pills, regeneration pills, and so on, there are 70,000 portions of each. In total, there are more than 500,000 portions of herbs. I think it's impossible to refine them in half a month. Lu Hong shook her head and said with a smile, "This old fox is really greedy." Qin Feiyang was a little annoyed. With his current refining speed, he could refine one pill every 10 breaths. This was already very fast. However, even if he didn't stop and rest, he could only refine 300,000 pills in half a month at most. And the old man said that he would probably enter the capital in a few days. There was no time at all. Lu Hong asked, "Why don't we return all these herbs to him?" "Forget it. We can't go back on our word since we've promised him. Besides, if we really return them, we won't be able to earn the 900 portions of red fire-colored glass pills and 150 portions of potential pills. This is also a huge fortune. Let's see how many we can refine." Chapter 679. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. In these 7 days, the news of Qin Feiyang and the others returning from the 9 Nether Yellow Springs had already spread throughout the major cities of the state capital. Many people with power and influence came to pay him a visit out of admiration. However, not only did they not see Qin Feiyang, but they also did not see Lu Xingqian, Dong Zhengyang, and the others. In the eyes of these people, Qin Feiyang and the others seemed to have disappeared from the face of the earth. In fact, everyone was cultivating in seclusion to adjust their state. After all, they had been fighting in the 9 Nether Yellow Springs all these years and were always in a state of high alert. Therefore, both physically and mentally, they were quite tired. Now that they were about to go to the capital, they naturally had to adjust. As for Qin Feiyang, he stayed in the alchemy room all day these 7 days, so busy that he was sweating profusely. At noon that day, all of a sudden, the image crystal in his chest started to move. Qin Feiyang ignored it. After refining the pills in the furnace, he took out the image crystal. Buzz. The figure of an old man appeared. It was the old man. The old man frowned and said, "What are you doing?" Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, "I was refining pills just now." "What's wrong?" The old man said, "Pack up quickly and gather at the Butterfly Valley." Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and asked, "You're going to the capital now?" The old man nodded. Qin Feiyang hesitated for a moment and said, "Can you wait a few more days? I still have some pills that haven't been refined." "No, come right away," the old man said without any room for discussion. After that, he directly turned off the image crystal. Qin Feiyang shook his head with a wry smile and sent a message to Yin Yuanming. When Yin Yuanming learned of the situation, he immediately opened the portal and descended into the alchemy room. "I say, Brother Qin, aren't you being too unreasonable? In any case, you should at least finish refining before leaving." As soon as Yin Yuanming appeared, he couldn't help but complain. Qin Feiyang said helplessly, "I want to, but Old Master won't let me." "Why don't you talk to Old Master?" Yin Yuanming's face twitched. Wasn't looking for the Old Master the same as looking for a scolding? Yin Yuanming asked, "How many have you refined?" "A few 100,000. Qin Feiyang wasn't sure either. Because he had been refining for the past 7 days, he had not counted. "So little?" Yin Yuanming frowned. "You still think it's not enough? Let me tell you, you're lucky to have met me. If it were anyone else, you would give them hundreds of thousands of sets of herbs at once. Who would want to refine it for you? Besides, I haven't rested since I came back from the Netherworld. Do you think it's easy for me?" Qin Feiyang said unhappily. Yes. I've troubled you." Yin Yuanming smiled embarrassedly. "Old man?" Qin Feiyang's face darkened. He pointed to a chinkuan bag next to the furnace and said, "The medicinal pills are all inside." In Yuaming grabbed the chinkuan bag and checked it carefully. His face was filled with ecstasy. They were all medicinal pills with 3 Dan veins. Moreover, red fire-colored glass pill and potential pill were both refined. As long as these 2 medicinal pills were refined, it didn't matter if the other medicinal pills were refined or not. Qin Feiyang joked, "Do you feel better now?" "Yes." In Yuaming chuckled. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him, took out another chinkuan bag from his bosom, and said, "These are the remaining medicinal herbs." In Yuaming hurriedly waved his hand and said, "No need, no need. Just take it as a farewell gift for you." Originally, he thought that it was only a medicinal pill with 2 Dan veins. But now that he looked at it, it was actually all 3 Dan veins. The value was completely different. Farewell gift? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Then, he couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. At the same time, In Yuanming also put away the chinkuan bag, and his expression became serious. "Brother Qin, although I have never been to the imperial capital, but I can imagine that it is definitely crueler than the state capital. After you go, no matter what happens, you must not be reckless." "Thank you. Also, please help me take good care of Aunt Snow," Qin Feiyang said. "Don't worry." In Yuaming smiled and cupped his hands. "Then I will take my leave. Let's meet again if fate wills it." "Let's meet again if fate wills it." Qin Feiyang cupped his hands. In Yuanming opened a teleportation gate, took a deep look at Qin Feiyang, and then turned and walked in. When the teleportation gate dissipated, Qin Feiyang took out the image crystal again and sent a message to Fatso and Wolf King. These 2 fellows, ever since they separated that night, had never appeared again. It was unknown where they had been fooling around these past few days. A moment later, Fatso and Wolf King materialized. Behind them were endless mountains and rivers. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, "Where are you?" Fatso said, "The mountains outside the city." "Why?" Qin Feiyang said, "Let's go to Butterfly Valley immediately. The old man is already waiting for us there." Fatso said, "Go to the imperial capital?" Qin Feiyang nodded. Fatso was refreshed and said, "Okay, we will go there right away. We will bring 2 friends along with us." "Friends?" Qin Feiyang was taken aback, but before he could ask, Fatso turned off the image crystal. "What friends?" Muttering in confusion, Qin Feiyang put away the image crystal and took out a teleportation gate. But just as he was about to open the teleportation gate, he suddenly stopped and lowered his head to ponder. Finally, he entered the castle and looked at Lin Yi. At this moment, Lin Yi and Lu Hong stood together. It was unknown what they were talking about, but there was a smile on their faces. Qin Feiyang asked curiously, "What are you talking about? Why are you smiling so happily?" Lu Hong smiled and said, "Nothing, just some topics between women." Qin Feiyang smiled and looked at Lin Yi again. Before he spoke, Lin Yi said, "You don't have to say anything. I have decided to stay." Qin Feiyang murmured, and an inexplicable sadness rose in his heart. Although Lin Yi said it straightforwardly, her dim eyes exposed her true thoughts deep in her heart. In fact, she wanted to go to the imperial capital. To be exact, she wanted to be with him. Lin Yi smiled and said, "Brother Feiyang, you don't have to think about me. I will live well in the spiritual state." But this smile was stiff. Looking at this smile, Qin Feiyang's heart suddenly felt a burst of pain. Lin Yi calmly stretched out her hands and smiled. "Brother Feiyang, this farewell may be forever. Can I hug you one last time?" Qin Feiyang sighed secretly and stepped forward. The 2 hugged each other. At this moment, Lin Yi was obsessed with him like never before. She couldn't help but burst into tears, blurring her vision. But she did not cry. She wept silently. After a while, she forced a smile and whispered, "Brother Feiyang, when you go to the imperial capital, you must take good care of yourself." "I will. You have to take care of yourself too. If you encounter any trouble, let the old man find a way to inform me." "I will definitely rush back as soon as possible," Qin Feiyang reminded, and his nose couldn't help but sour. And Lin Yi nodded, quietly wiped away her tears, got up, pushed Qin Feiyang away, and smiled. Don't let the old man wait for a long time. Send me out. Sigh. Qin Feiyang sighed again and appeared in the alchemy room with Lin Yi. Immediately, Lin Yi took a few steps back and looked at Qin Feiyang silently. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the portal opened. It was at this moment he suddenly felt that he was simply a bastard. He should feel lucky to have a woman who likes him so much. He should cherish her. But, yet, time and time again, he had made the other party cry. He couldn't wait to slap himself a few times. I really don't know how lucky I am. Linny smiled and said, What are you thinking about? Why aren't you going? If the old man gets angry, the consequences will be very serious. Qin Feiyang's mind trembled, and he suddenly made a decision. He turned to look at Lin Yi and said, If I can survive in the imperial capital, I will definitely come back to find you. After saying that, he turned around resolutely and walked into the portal. At the same time, Lin Yi also smiled. Like a blooming flower, she was particularly beautiful. Butterfly Valley, Ren Wushuang, Lu Xingqian, Dong Zhengyang, and Shun Mei were all present. Fatso and Wolf King also came. Only Qin Feiyang had not arrived yet. The old man, the former mansion master, and Wang Hong stood together, frowning tightly. They seemed very unhappy. Swish! Suddenly, there was a shock in the void, and a white figure appeared out of thin air. Fatso hurriedly said, Boss is here. The old man looked up, and his old face suddenly became angry. He said, I asked you to come immediately. What are you waiting for? The ugly old woman followed and said, I asked you to go to the imperial capital, but you are still so slow. You might as well not go. Qin Feiyang's face changed. He hurriedly admitted his mistake and said, I'm sorry. I was delayed by something. The old man rolled his eyes at him and looked at everyone. Since everyone is here, I will announce one thing. What is it? Everyone was puzzled. The old man said, Wang Hong has now been officially appointed as the mansion master of the spiritual state. Remember to call him mansion master in the future. Don't call him commander anymore. Sure enough, Qin Feiyang murmured. Dong Zhengyang and the others looked a little shocked, especially Ren Wushuang. She glanced at Wang Hong, then looked at the old man and asked, Grandpa, what about you? The old man smiled and said, Grandpa is old. It's time to put down the burden. I will stay here in the future and guard this altar. But Ren Wushuang still wanted to say something. The old man waved his hand and said, Don't say it. This is the rule. After going to the imperial capital, remember to work hard. Don't embarrass Grandpa. And Ren Wushuang nodded. Then let's go. I hope you can all make a name for yourself in the imperial capital. The old man smiled. Before leaving, everyone was a little sad. Dong Zhengyang bowed and said, Old man, thank you for your nurturing over the years. No matter where I go in the future, I will never forget that I am a member of the spiritual state. Lu Xingqian and Shan Mei also nodded. The old man smiled and said, I am satisfied that you all have this heart. Go. Old man, take care. Grandpa, take care. Then, they turned around and followed behind the ugly old woman as they walked towards the small wooden building. But at this moment, Wang Hong sent a voice transmission. Qin Feiyang, what do you think of the matter I told you last time? Chapter 680. Who? Wang Hong was taken aback and asked secretly. Qin Feiyang said, Lin Yi. She is now in alchemy room number 1 in the inner hall. I will have to trouble you to take care of her for me in the future. Okay, thank you. Wang Hong said gratefully in secret. With our relationship, it's too polite to thank me. Let's go. Take care. Qin Feiyang responded with a smile, then took Fatso and Wolf King, turned around, and chased after Lu Xingqian and others. Looking at the back of the group of people, the old master sighed. Our spiritual state finally has someone going to the capital. It's not easy. Yeah. Wang Hong nodded and smiled again. I believe this will be a good start. Yes. In the future, our spiritual state will definitely have many talents. By the way, you and Qin Feiyang were flirting with each other just now. Did you say something secretly? The old master asked. Wang Hong shook his head and smiled. It's nothing. I just told him to keep a low profile in the capital. Really? The old master looked at him suspiciously. Do you think I will lie to you? Wang Hong smiled bitterly. That's true. According to his character, if no one restrains him, I don't know what kind of trouble he will cause in the capital, but this kid is not an ordinary person. Let's not worry about him. The old master smiled. Wang Hong nodded. Swish. At this moment, a middle-aged man descended in front of the old master and Wang Hong. Jiang Qianqing? Wang Hong was taken aback and puzzled. What are you doing here? Jiang Qianqing smiled. I'm here to say goodbye to you too. Goodbye? The old master and Wang Hong looked at each other and looked at Jiang Qianqing suspiciously. I only appeared to protect one person, and this person has now entered the capital. Naturally, I don't need to continue to stay in the spiritual state. Jiang Qianqing smiled faintly. Protect who? The old master was surprised. It doesn't matter who it is. What matters is that he has returned to the capital. Jiang Qianqing smiled faintly and said nothing more. He opened a portal and left without looking back. What's the situation? The two elders looked at each other. They had always thought that Jiang Qianqing was a rogue cultivator, but they never expected that he had come with a purpose. Meanwhile, outside the gates of the temple, a golden-haired woman was walking on a wide street. This woman looked to be in her 20s, and she wore a light golden dress. She had a devastatingly beautiful face and a devilish figure. Her skin was like white jade, suffused with a sparkling luster. Her soft golden curly hair was like a wave that slowly drifted behind her. Wow, where did this beauty come from? Amazing. She's simply a goddess. When the disciples of the temple saw this woman, they could not help but stop and take a few more glances. Very soon, the woman walked to the bottom of the stone stairs in front of the sacred hall's gate. Immediately, a young man in white ran up to her and said with a smile, Miss, are you here to sign up? I can show you the way. No, thank you. The blonde woman replied politely. The young man in white was puzzled. If you're not here to sign up, then why are you here? The blonde woman pondered for a while and said, I want to find someone. Who? A man or a woman? The young man in white asked. A man. The blonde woman said, Damn, that bastard's luck is so good. He actually made such a great beauty personally come to find him? The young man in white was indignant. The other men around were also jealous. At this moment, the blonde woman asked, Do you know Qin Feiyang? What? She's here to find Qin Feiyang? Everyone present was greatly shaken. The uneasiness and jealousy in their hearts disappeared. The young man in white asked carefully, May I ask, what's your relationship with senior brother Qin? We. The blonde woman hesitated and said with a smile, We're friends. Everyone's heart trembled. Even if they were just friends, they did not dare to touch them. Back then, Zhang Chuan and Wang Fei had touched Lu Hong. In the end, they were tortured to death by ruffian wolf here. That was a lesson in blood. The young man in white's eyes immediately became respectful and said with a flattering smile, Miss, senior brother Qin was indeed in the sacred palace before, but now he has entered the inner hall. Inner hall? The blonde woman was startled and asked doubtfully, Where is the inner hall? The young man in white shook his head and said, I don't know either, because only by becoming a disciple of the sacred palace and breaking through to the war emperor realm will one be qualified to go to the inner hall. A trace of disappointment crept into the golden-haired woman's alluring eyes. What are you all doing here? Don't you have anything to do? At this moment, a cold shout sounded. A middle-aged man in black stood in the sky. His aura was like a vast ocean, unfathomable. Greetings, Elder Yin. Upon seeing this person, the disciples present all bowed and greeted him. That's right. This person was Yin Nanshan. Do you all think that you're very strong now and don't need to cultivate? If that's the case, then all of you should get out of the sacred palace, because the sacred palace doesn't need people like you who don't want to improve. Yin Nanshan shouted with a cold face. No, no. We'll go and cultivate now. The group of disciples' faces changed drastically, and they immediately dispersed. Miss, Elder Yin and senior brother Qin have a good relationship. You can ask him for help. The young man in white whispered to the blonde woman and immediately fled in fear. Because Qin Feiyang and the others' departure was not announced to the public, other than the various big shots, the other people in the continent's capital did not know that Qin Feiyang had left. They thought that he was still in the inner hall. After the disciples left, Yin Nanshan lowered his head and looked at the blonde woman with a trace of surprise in his eyes. This little girl didn't look very old, but she was already a one-star war emperor. Cough. He coughed and said with a serious face, "Miss, this is the sacred palace. Outsiders are not allowed to enter. If you're here to register, then pass the first test. If not, please leave immediately." After saying that, he turned around and left. "Senior, wait," the blonde woman hurriedly said. "What's the matter?" Yin Nanshan stopped and lowered his head to look at the blonde woman. The blonde woman cupped her fists and said, "I would like to ask Senior to bring me to see Qin Feiyang." Yin Nanshan was stunned and landed in front of the woman. He frowned and said, "Who are you to Feiyang?" I'm his friend," the blonde woman said. "Friend?" Yin Nanshan looked at the blonde woman. He was not the same as the group of disciples just now. He had seen countless people, and he could tell that the woman was not telling the truth from her tone. Yin Nanshan said with a straight face, "Leave?" "Why?" The woman suddenly became anxious. "Because you're not honest," Yin Nanshan said and pretended to turn around and leave. "Senior," I said, "actually, I missed him too much. That's why I came to find him." The woman stammered. Her cheeks were already flushed red by the time she finished speaking. Yin Nanshan was stunned. What kind of relationship was that? This brat sure hit it well. Yin Nanshan cursed in his heart and said with a smile, "Young lady, you're late. Feiyang is already on his way to the capital." The blonde woman's face turned pale. Yin Nanshan said, "If you have anything to say, you can tell me first. I'll pass it on to him when I have the chance." The woman said, "Can't I meet him personally?" Yin Nanshan shook his head. "No, unless you go to the capital too. But that's impossible." The woman said anxiously, "Then what do I have to do to enter the capital?" Yin Nanshan said, "Become an inner palace disciple and pass the Great Nine States competition. However, there are still 10 years until the next Great Nine States competition." 10 years. The blonde woman's face turned paler and she murmured, "Why didn't he come to see me when he left the spiritual state? Was it really my wishful thinking?" The woman turned around and left with a look of disappointment. However, she stopped after taking 2 steps and lowered her head as if she was struggling with something. Suddenly, she turned around and looked at Yin Nanshan with a determined look in her eyes. "Senior, I want to enter the inner palace." Yin Nanshan looked at her deeply and smiled. "What's your name?" The blonde woman thought for a moment and said, "Senior, just call me you. Okay, follow me." Yin Nanshan nodded and turned to walk up the stone stairs that led to the entrance of the palace. Whoosh! The woman took a deep breath and followed him resolutely. In the passage leading to the teleportation altar, Qin Feiyang and the others were moving as fast as lightning. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang felt a sharp pain in his heart. He immediately stopped and touched his chest. His eyes were filled with bewilderment. This pain came from the concentric knot. At this moment, he could clearly sense the mermaid princess's current emotions. There was disappointment, sadness, and helplessness. He did not understand why the mermaid princess would suddenly have such emotions. Fatso noticed Qin Feiyang's strange behavior and asked suspiciously, "Boss, what's wrong?" Qin Feiyang did not answer, his eyes flickering. "No. I have to go to the Sea of Despair to take a look." He was worried. He was afraid that something would happen to the mermaid princess. But just as he turned around, those strange emotions disappeared again. What's going on? Qin Feiyang was confused. Could it be that the mermaid princess already knew that he was leaving the spiritual state? But that couldn't be. The mermaid princess was in the Sea of Despair, isolated from the world. How could she have received the news? At this moment, the ugly old woman said angrily, "Qin Feiyang, tell me, what are you trying to do? If you don't want to go, just say it." "I'm sorry." Qin Feiyang quickly turned around and apologized. "Don't waste time. Let's go." The ugly old woman glanced at him coldly, then turned around and continued to rush forward. Lu Xingqian and the others glanced at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Then, they immediately unleashed their fastest speed and followed after him. Fatso frowned and said, "Boss, what's wrong with you? Why do you look uneasy?" "It's nothing. Let's go." Qin Feiyang smiled and chased after Lu Xingqian and the others. Although he didn't know why, from the emotions transmitted by the concentric knot, the mermaid princess's life was not in danger. As long as her life was not in danger, he could leave with peace of mind. Strange. Fatso and Wolf King looked at each other and quickly chased after him. Soon. Chapter 681. Looking at the altar in front of them, everyone was extremely excited, including the ugly old woman, because once they stepped on the altar, it was equivalent to staying in the imperial capital forever. This was a matter that would bring glory to their ancestors. But, in the depths of Qin Feiyang's eyes, there was an astonishing cold light. It had been more than 10 years. He had been looking forward to this day for more than 10 years. Now that he had finally reached this final step, his heart was unable to calm down, and the past hidden in the bottom of his heart also uncontrollably surfaced in his mind. His heart felt as if it was being cut by a knife. Fatso was standing beside Qin Feiyang. He quickly noticed Qin Feiyang's abnormality and quickly reminded him secretly, "Boss, calm down. Don't be rash." "I know." Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. Although his heart was filled with anger, it was not to the extent of losing his mind. Buzz. At the same time, the ugly old woman activated her battle chi and continuously poured it into the teleportation altar. Looking at the awakening altar, Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and secretly said, "Where have you two been fooling around these past few days?" "Outside the city, didn't I tell you?" Seeing Qin Feiyang calm down, Fatso and Wolf King also secretly heaved a sigh of relief. They were afraid that Qin Feiyang would not be able to hold back and directly barge into the imperial palace as soon as he entered the imperial capital. At that time, they were afraid that they would lose their lives before even seeing the emperor. Qin Feiyang frowned. "I'm asking you, what are you doing outside the city?" Fatso laughed. "It's nothing, just fooling around in the mountains with the lion-head eagle and the blood eagle." Lion-head eagle, blood eagle? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and asked, "The two little friends you mentioned are them?" "That's right. Who else do you think it is?" Fatso and Wolf King nodded. Qin Feiyang looked around, then looked at Ren Wushuang and asked suspiciously, "Then where are they now? Why don't I see them?" "We're here. How is it? Isn't it a huge surprise?" Before he finished speaking, Lion-head eagle and Shuang came out from Ren Wushuang's bosom and laughed mischievously at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang looked at them and was speechless. What kind of surprise was this? Wolf King said telepathically, "Little Qin Zi, this isn't a surprise. But there's something you'll definitely be surprised to hear." "What is it?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Wolf King snickered. "Lu Xingqian and Shun Mei are together again." "What?" Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. Wolf King thought to himself, "Big Bro and Fatso saw it with our own eyes and heard it with our own ears. It can't be fake." "When did this happen?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "It was 7 days ago that night. However, now it's just Lu Xingqian who is pursuing Shun Mei unilaterally. Shun Mei hasn't agreed yet." Wolf King said. Qin Feiyang glanced at Lu Xingqian and Shin Mei's backs and said telepathically, "I don't think Shun Mei will agree. After all, Lu Xingqian once heard her." "Not necessarily. That night, we saw with our own eyes that he knelt in front of Shun Mei and begged her to forgive him. And now Lu Xingqian is very good at dealing with women. I guess Shun Mei will return to his arms soon." Fatso sneered. "He actually knelt?" Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. After all, now Lu Xingqian was a person with strong self-esteem. Even if a knife was put to his neck, he might not be able to force him to kneel. Could it be that this person really liked Shin Mei? Of course. If this person really liked Shun Mei, it could be considered a good thing. But he was afraid that Lu Xingqian would want to use her to do some shady business. After all, this was a person with a criminal record. It seemed that he had to find time to talk to Ren Wushuang about this matter and let her remind Shin Mei to avoid another tragedy. At this time, With a low buzzing sound, the transmission altar was completely activated. "Let's go," the ugly old woman called out and took the lead to jump onto the transmission altar. Lu Xingqian and the others followed closely behind. Qin Feiyang also temporarily put aside the matter of Shan Mei and Lu Xingqian and jumped onto the altar. Fatso and Wolf King also rushed up. Immediately, the group of figures quickly faded. In the end, as if evaporating into thin air, they disappeared without a trace. The light of the transmission altar also quickly dimmed. The capital, in a sealed space. This space was more than 1,000 feet long. 9 blood-red altars were neatly arranged on the ground, exuding an ancient and mysterious aura. Next to the 9 altars, there was a black stone tablet with different words engraved on it. Lingzhou, Fengzhou, Hezhou, Yuzhou, and so on. At this moment, a group of people gathered next to these altars. Most of them were familiar faces to Qin Feiyang. There was Wan Xiu, there was Tan Wu, there was Zhao Yu, Ling Yu, Feng Ranran, Luo Dan. There was also Feng Wuxie and the twin sisters. But they didn't say anything. They lowered their heads and thought about their own matters. Next to them, there were 5 old men. These 5 people didn't say anything. They all closed their eyes as if they were recuperating from their injuries. The aura they exuded was unfathomable. Suddenly, Wan Xiu raised his head and glanced at the crowd. He said impatiently, "How long do we have to wait? When everyone is here, someone will naturally come to pick us up." One of the old men said calmly. He didn't open his eyes when he spoke. "Everyone is here except for the Lingzhou. They're really dawdling." Wan Xiu snorted. Zhao Yu snorted. "It's not like we're in a hurry to reincarnate. What are you in a hurry for?" Wan Xiu raised his eyebrows and looked at Zhao Yu. "Did I say anything about you? Why are you talking so much nonsense?" "Whoever talks the most nonsense knows best." Zhao Yu smiled disdainfully. A cold glint flashed across Wan Xiu's eyes. Buzz. At this moment, one of the altars shone brightly. Following that, figures appeared one after another. It was Qin Feiyang and the others. The group jumped off the altar one after another. The ugly old woman looked at the 5 old men and cupped her hands with a smile. "Sorry to have kept you waiting." The 5 of them finally opened their eyes, and rays of light burst out. One of the old men glanced at Qin Feiyang and the others, then looked at the ugly old woman and said unhappily, "Why do you people from the Lingzhou always take so long to do things?" Something came up at the last minute. "Sorry." The ugly old woman smiled apologetically and didn't forget to glare at Qin Feiyang. She was obviously blaming him. Qin Feiyang smiled embarrassedly and looked at the 5 old men. His pupils shrank slightly. The aura of these 5 people was almost on par with the ugly old woman. Obviously, they were the previous masters of Hezhou, Yuzhou, Fengzhou, Yuzhou, and Kongzhou. The 5 old men were also sizing up Qin Feiyang, as if they wanted to see through him. But in the end, they could only see through Qin Feiyang's cultivation. As for the rest, they couldn't see anything. It felt like there was a mysterious veil covering Qin Feiyang's body. Then, the 5 of them withdrew their gazes in disappointment and continued to chat with the ugly old woman. At the same time, Ling Yu and the other 3 also went forward and chatted with Qin Feiyang and the others. As for Wan Xiu, Feng Wuxie, and the other 2, they looked at Qin Feiyang and the others with a sharp gaze. As for Tan Wu, he didn't greet anyone or say a word, seeming a little lonely. While chatting, Qin Feiyang looked around. It was fine if he didn't look, but when he looked, his eyes were filled with surprise. This place looked so familiar. It felt like he had been here not long ago. He thought carefully for a moment and suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He remembered. It was the illusion of the Bridge of Helplessness. Back then in the illusion, he had been to a place called the Pagoda, and the space on the first floor of the pagoda, be it the size or layout, was exactly the same as here. The things in the illusion were the same as the real world? This made Qin Feiyang feel incredulous. He even wondered if the pagoda really existed, and this place was the pagoda. Clang! Suddenly, a loud explosion jolted Qin Feiyang awake. He turned to look. There was a stone door in front of him. At this moment, the stone door was slowly opening and rays of sunlight shone in through the gap. Through the gap, one could vaguely see a person standing outside the door. At this moment, everyone quietened down and looked at the stone door that was opening. As the gap between the stone door grew larger, the person standing outside the stone door gradually entered everyone's sight. When he saw that person's face clearly, Qin Feiyang felt like a bolt out of the blue and his mind rumbled. It was an old man. He was wearing a pure white robe and had white hair and a white beard. He exuded an otherworldly aura. Qin Feiyang had seen this person before. It was the old man who guarded the pagoda in the illusion. When the stone door was completely opened, the ugly old woman and the others immediately walked to the old man and bowed. "Greetings, old Qin." They looked extremely respectful. Even the way they address him is the same. Qin Feiyang frowned. He remembered that in the illusion, Qin Zhong and Qin Yi also called this old man Old Qin.
Yes.
Old Qin nodded and looked past the ugly old woman and the others to Qin Feiyang and the others. When they made eye contact with Old Qin, Qin Feiyang and the others felt as if they had fallen into a bottomless abyss and couldn't help but feel cold all over. The ugly old woman shouted, "What are you all doing there? Hurry up and salute Old Qin." "Greetings, Old Qin." Everyone quivered and bowed respectfully one after another. Old Qin glanced at them one by one and suddenly locked his eyes on Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang's heart trembled. Could it be that he had seen through his identity? If the illusion was really the same as the real world, then this was the back mountain of the Imperial Palace. And this Old Qin, as a member of the Imperial Palace, must know what he looked like when he was young. So, his heart was in his throat. Old Qin looked at Qin Feiyang for a moment and asked, "You are the Qin Feiyang who killed everyone in the 9 underworlds?" "That's me." Qin Feiyang nodded and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that he hadn't been discovered. "The 2 palace lords of the spiritual state have praised you, saying that you have great talent and are a rare talent. But being talented doesn't give you the right to be arrogant. This old man has a piece of advice for you. You'd better behave when you come to the capital, because this place has no lack of powerhouses and geniuses," Old Qin said. The 2 mansion lords he was referring to were naturally the old man and the ugly old woman. Qin Feiyang frowned slightly and said, "Thank you for your advice, Old Qin. I will remember it." Wan Xiu looked at Qin Feiyang gloatingly. "This is the price of being arrogant. Let's see if you dare to be arrogant in the future." But then, Old Qin suddenly looked at Wan Xiu and sized him up and asked, "You are Wan Xiu?" "Yes, I am." Wan Xiu hurriedly replied respectfully. Old Qin said, "Do you feel good seeing Qin Feiyang being taught a lesson?" Wan Xiu's expression froze and he quickly shook his head. "I don't." "You better not. Although Qin Feiyang is arrogant, no one says that he isn't good at anything else. As for you, you started rumors and created trouble to frame Qin Feiyang. Your intentions are worthy of death. If this had happened in the imperial capital, you would have been dead long ago," Old Qin said expressionlessly. Hearing this, Wan Xiu was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. He nodded repeatedly and said, "Old Qin is right. I promise that I won't do it again." This time, on the other hand, Qin Feiyang and the others looked at him gloatingly. The saying that evil people have their own retribution was true. Old Qin glanced at Wan Xiu coldly and said, "Come out." Immediately, a group of people came out in a line. Outside, there was a small square paved with black stones. There were traces of severe weathering. It was obvious that it had been there for many years. Everyone stood in the square and curiously looked around. On all sides, there was an endless mountain range. The mountains rose and fell, and the ancient trees towered into the sky. In the mountain stream, one could also sense countless terrifying auras. This was the aura of a fierce beast. Moreover, it was not a normal kind of terror. Every aura made them feel the threat of death. One must know, they were all war masters. Just the aura alone made them feel this way. One could imagine how terrifying the strength of the fierce beasts lurking in the mountain stream was. After Qin Feiyang came out, he immediately turned around and looked behind him. Immediately, he was dumbfounded. In front of him, there was a huge ancient pagoda. It was dark all over and exuded an ancient aura. On the front of the ancient pagoda, there were 2 majestic words engraved on it. Pagoda. Sure enough, it was the same as in the illusion. Fatso saw Qin Feiyang staring at the pagoda and also looked at it suspiciously and sent a sound transmission. Boss, what's so good about this pagoda? Qin Feiyang said, There's nothing good about this pagoda, but this place should be the back mountain of the Imperial Palace. What? Fatso's gaze trembled as he scanned the surrounding mountains and rivers. He really didn't expect that the entrance would be located in the back mountain of the Imperial Palace. No, Fatso said again. Why would you say that it should be? Could it be that you can't be sure? The back mountain is the forbidden area of the Imperial Palace. I never came here when I was young, but last time in the illusion of the Bridge of Helplessness, I came here, Qin Feiyang thought. Illusion? Fatso was stunned and said disdainfully, Boss, is there something wrong with your head? You even believe in the illusion? Qin Feiyang said, The problem is, everything here is exactly the same as in the illusion. There's such a thing? Fatso was extremely surprised. Illusions were all illusions. Normally speaking, they would not match with the real world. But the illusion that Qin Feiyang saw was exactly the same as the one here, which was unbelievable. At this time, Old Man Qin closed the stone door of the pagoda, opened another teleportation gate, and said, There's nothing to see. Hurry up and register at the temple. Temple? Chapter 682. Soon, a group of people descended in front of a stone staircase. The stone staircase was more than 10 meters wide and more than 20 meters high. There were about 50 to 60 steps, and it was filled with an ancient aura. And on top of the stone staircase, there was a stone tablet. The stone tablet was more than 10 meters tall, and it was completely white as if it was made of white jade. There were two big words engraved on it. Temple. These two words were like iron hooks and silver strokes, exuding a majestic aura. Behind the stone tablet, there were many magnificent halls. Some were tens of meters tall, some were hundreds of meters tall, and some were even towering into the clouds. This is the temple? Everyone glanced at the buildings, and their eyes were filled with curiosity, including Fatso and Wolf King. Only Qin Feiyang didn't have the slightest ripple. After all, he was born in the imperial capital, and he wasn't unfamiliar with the temple. Fatso asked secretly, Boss, do you know what this temple is for? What else can it be for? It's nothing more than the same as the temple, cultivating talents to serve the great Qin Empire. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice, and there was a trace of disdain in his tone. I see. Fatso muttered and said again. Then is the temple also divided into the martial arts hall and the Dan hall? Definitely. Qin Feiyang nodded. Then is there a spiritual power restriction? Fatso asked. The Dan hall of the temple had a spiritual power restriction, and only those who had reached level 5 of spiritual power could enter. I don't know about that. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Fatso was stunned and said in surprise, You're not from the imperial capital. How can you not know? Must I know if I'm from the imperial capital? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him. Actually, the temple had a very high status in the imperial capital, because the master behind the temple was the current emperor. Therefore, even the children of the feudal lords would fight to enter the temple. Even the princes of the imperial palace would enter the temple. However, Qin Feiyang was different at that time. First, although all the princes were the children of emperors, Qin Feiyang was lucky to have an empress as his mother. It was common knowledge. The status of celestial empress would be higher than those concubines in the imperial harem. As such, at that time, Qin Feiyang's position in the imperial palace was also higher than the other princes. Second, at that time, Qin Feiyang was deeply favored by the emperor. The emperor often taught him cultivation personally, so there was no need for him to enter the temple. Or rather, even if he wanted to enter the temple at that time, the emperor and empress would not allow it. Therefore, Qin Feiyang only had a general understanding of the temple. As for the details, he had no idea. Of course, in the past, he had disdained to inquire about these things. Da-da. Suddenly, the sound of steady and powerful footsteps came from the top of the stone stairs. Soon, a middle-aged man in black entered the line of sight of Qin Feiyang and the others. This burly man was about 1.9 meters tall and had bulging muscles all over his body. He was filled with a wild aura. Seeing this person, everyone's pupils shrank, because they could not see through this person's cultivation at all. At the same time, the burly man also lowered his head and looked at Qin Feiyong and the others. There was no expression on his rough face. No one knew what he was thinking. Dong Xingyang looked at the black-robed old woman and said in a low voice, "Senior, do you know who he is?" "I don't know." The black-robed old woman shook her head. Without knowing the other party's identity, she did not know how to address him. Therefore, for a moment, the ugly old woman and the others were also at a loss. The middle-aged man suddenly said, "Are you people from the 9 great regions?" His voice was very loud and clear, shaking everyone's eardrums. Yes. The ugly old woman and the others nodded respectfully. The middle-aged man said, "My name is Yu Ming, the law-enforcing elder of the Temple Law Enforcement Hall. I am here to pick you up." "Greetings, Elder Yu Ming." The 6 of them immediately bowed. Qin Feiyong and the others also bowed in greeting. "Follow me," Yu Ming said lightly, then turned and left. The ugly old woman and the others led Qin Feiyong and the others up the stone stairs in a hurry. Wolf King asked suspiciously, "Little Qin Zi, what is the Law Enforcement Hall?" "The Law Enforcement Hall exists to maintain the order of the temple," Qin Feiyong said. The number of disciples in the temple was uncountable. Therefore, in order to maintain the order of the temple set up a law enforcement hall. And each person in the law enforcement hall was very powerful. Moreover, they controlled the life and death of the disciples of the temple. They even dared to kill the children of the feudal lords. Therefore, their status in the temple was very high, and they were also the most feared existence of the disciples of the temple. "I'll go." They even dared to kill the children of the feudal lords? Fatso and Wolf King were stunned. They have such power because the law enforcement hall is directly under the jurisdiction of the temple master. And the temple master is the state preceptor, Qin Feiyong said. State preceptor? Fatso was puzzled. The state preceptor is the person with the highest status in the Great Qin Empire, except for the emperor and the empress. Moreover, he is the master of the current emperor, Qin Feiyong said. The master of the emperor. Fatso and Wolf King looked at each other, their eyes full of shock. Wolf King asked, "Is this state preceptor stronger than the current emperor?" "I don't know. This state preceptor is very mysterious, and he is elusive. I only saw him once when I was a child." Qin Feiyong shook his head. Fatso said, "Fat Lord is sure that this person's strength must have reached the level of heaven and earth, and he is likely to be an obstacle to your revenge in the future. If he really dares to meddle in other people's business, then I won't show mercy." Qin Feiyong sneered. Heard. Fatso and Wolf King couldn't help but shake their heads and laugh. They had never doubted Qin Feiyong's ability. Although he was definitely not a match for this state preceptor now, in the future, he would be able to trample this person under his feet sooner or later. Fatso said, "Boss, the law enforcement hall is so terrifying. It should be very difficult to enter the law enforcement hall. And I don't dare to say how difficult it is, but as far as I know, the number of people in the law enforcement hall has always been limited to 99. Plus the hall master of the law enforcement hall. It's exactly 100. Qin Feiyong said. Fatso said, "In other words, even if you are qualified, you can't enter the law enforcement hall?" "Yes, unless someone in the law enforcement hall dies." Qin Feiyong nodded. "Dies? I'm afraid not. After all, this is the imperial capital. Who dares to touch them?" Fatso shook his head and said. During the conversation, the group had already climbed up the stone stairs, and a square entered their sight. The square was very big, but it was empty. It was especially cold and cheerless. On the opposite side of the square sat an ancient hall. The great hall was about 10 meters tall and was completely pitch black. Through the door, one could vaguely see a white-haired old man sitting inside. Yu Ming led them straight into the great hall. The layout of the hall was also quite simple. There was only a desk and 2 chairs. As for the white-haired old man, he was sitting at the desk, dozing off with his eyes closed. Yu Ming walked to the table, knocked on the table and said, "Old man, someone is here, register them." The white-haired old man slowly opened his eyes, looked at Yu Ming, then looked at Qin Feiyang and the others, and said indifferently, "Report your name and cultivation." The ugly old woman asked, "Do we want it to?" "Nonsense. If you don't tell me your name, how can I register you? And how can I give you an identity token?" The white-haired old man said without raising his head, his tone somewhat impatient. "Zhu 9 Star Wars sect." The ugly old woman hurriedly said, "What?" Qin Feiyang, Fatso, and Wolf King's eyes all trembled. He never thought that this old witch would actually be a 9 Star Wars sect. She was only one step away from becoming a war saint. At the same time, the white-haired old man took out a white token from the drawer under the desk. Next, the white-haired old man's fingertips surged with battle chi as he waved the token a few times. Then, he threw the token onto the table and said, "Next." The ugly old woman consciously stepped forward and grabbed the white token. Then, she retreated to the side and looked at the token in her hand with an excited expression. Because as long as she obtained this identity token, she would be able to stay in the imperial capital forever. The previous palace masters of He Prefecture, Yu Prefecture, Feng Prefecture, Kong Prefecture, and Yu Prefecture also stepped forward one after another and received their respective identity tokens. Moreover, they were all 9 Star Wars sect. Next, it was Qin Feiyang and the others' turn. Qin Feiyang was not in a hurry, and first let Lu Xingqian and the others receive their identity tokens. About 100 breaths passed. Everyone had gotten it. Only Qin Feiyang and Wolf King were left. Qin Feiyang, 1 Star Wars sect. Qin Feiyang consciously walked forward. The white-haired old man didn't ask anything and directly gave the identity token to Qin Feiyang. Following that, the white-haired old man closed his eyes and began to doze off. Wolf King frowned and asked, "Where is brother's identity token?" "There are no berserk beasts." The white-haired old man replied indifferently. Wolf King said angrily, "Damn, you are looking down on us berserk beasts." Shwa. The white-haired old man suddenly opened his eyes, and 2 cold rays of light shot out. At this moment, not only Wolf King, even Qin Feiyang and the others felt as if they had fallen into hell. They couldn't help but feel goosebumps all over their bodies. Even the ugly old woman and the others were the same. But very quickly, the white-haired old man closed his eyes again. Qin Feiyang immediately glared at Wolf King fiercely and said angrily in his heart, "This is not the sacred palace. Behave yourself." "Got it." The Wolf King pursed its lips, feeling a lingering fear. The old man in front of him looked very ordinary. There was no aura on his body, but it was obvious that he had hidden his cultivation. Yu Ming also looked at Wolf King meaningfully and asked, "Are there any alchemists among you?" The ugly old woman nodded and said, "Yes, Qin Feiyang is." Then next, alchemists, report to the Dan Hall. Martial artists, report to the Martial Arts Hall. Remember, in the Sacred Palace, disciples are strictly prohibited from fighting in private. Otherwise, regardless of right or wrong, they will be punished. Yu Ming said, "Disciple will remember." Everyone replied respectfully, "Best remember." Yu Ming glanced at the few of them and said, his tone carrying a hint of warning, "Finished." With a wave of his hand, he took the ugly old woman and the others and disappeared without a trace. They left just like that? Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other in dismay. Leaving them here just like that? Wasn't this person too irresponsible? Shouldn't he at least tell them the location of the Martial Arts Hall and the Dan Hall? "What should we do?" Zhao Yu asked. Everyone was at a loss of what to do. Luo Dan pointed at the white-haired old man sitting at the desk and said softly, "Should we ask him?" "I don't dare." Feng Ranran shook her head. Ling Yu gritted his teeth and said, "I'll ask." But before Ling Yu could speak, the white-haired old man said, "Go and find it yourself. If you can't even find the Martial Arts Hall and the Dan Hall, it means that you are too stupid. Our sacred palace doesn't welcome idiots." Heard. Everyone couldn't help but show a hint of anger in their eyes. After all, they were the best in the 9 prefectures. Not only did they not have anyone to guide them, but they were also criticized like that. Wasn't this too much? Chapter 683. Get out. The white-haired old man shouted impatiently. Let's go. Qin Feiyong took a deep breath and secretly called out to Fatso and Wolf King. Then, he turned and walked out of the main hall to the plaza. After Fatso came out, he complained, "Boss, this temple is too much. They don't even put us in their eyes." That's the reality. No matter how outstanding you are in the 9 prefectures, you're just an insignificant character in the imperial capital. If you want to gain the respect of others, prove it with your actions. Qin Feiyong transmitted his voice. Fatso pursed his lips and said, "Anyway, this imperial capital gave Fat Lord a bad impression." Wolf King said, "I also hate this place a little." Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes and said indifferently, "I told you not to come, but you insisted. Since you're here, just bear with it." At this moment, Lu Xingqian and the others also walked out of the main hall. Ling Yu sighed and said, "I didn't expect us, the geniuses of the 9 prefectures, to be reduced to such a state." The others also looked indignant. But what could they do? They had to lower their heads when they were under someone else's roof. After calming down, Wan Xiao, Feng Wuxia, and the twin sisters glanced at Qin Feiyong and the others and left first. Looking at the backs of the 4 people, Qin Feiyong frowned slightly. He felt that he had missed something, but he couldn't remember what he had missed. Lu Xingqian transmitted his voice and smiled. "Brother Qin, you should know the location of the martial arts hall and the pill hall, right?" "I don't know." Qin Feiyong shook his head. Lu Xingqian was stunned. As a prince of the great Qin Empire, how could he not know the layout of the temple? Qin Feiyong didn't explain. He turned to Tan Wu and said with a smile, "Brother Tan, we'll be brothers in the same sect in the future. Please take care of me." Tan Wu didn't answer and looked at him warily. Qin Feiyong couldn't help laughing. Shua. At this moment, a figure flashed across the void above. Qin Feiyong looked up and flew up into the sky. He called out, "Senior Marshal Brother, please wait." Obviously, he was going to ask for directions. Lu Xingqian and the others looked at each other, then followed suit and flew into the air. In the meantime, the black figure stopped in the air and turned to look at Qin Feiyong and the others. It was a young man who looked to be about 25 or 26 years old. He was about 1.8 meters tall and wore a fitting black robe. His temperament was quite extraordinary. However, the aura this person exuded wasn't very strong. He was only a 2-star battle ancestor. However, there was a very eye-catching white symbol on his chest. The symbol was a small sword. When Qin Feiyong's group approached, the black-clothed youth glanced at the chest area of Qin Feiyong's group and asked, "Are you new here?" Qin Feiyong nodded. Seeing Qin Feiyong nod, the black-clothed youth revealed a trace of disdain. Qin Feiyong naturally saw it, but he didn't care. He cupped his hands and smiled. "May I ask, Senior Marshal Brother, how do I get to the martial arts hall and the pill hall?" "You really don't know?" Lu Xingqian frowned slightly. He originally thought that Qin Feiyong was joking with him. The black-clothed youth didn't answer. He glanced at Qin Feiyong's group and paused for a while on Ren Wushuang and Shan Mei. At the same time, an undetectable light flashed in his eyes. The black-clothed youth smiled and said, "Coincidentally, I'm also going back to the martial arts hall. You guys can go with me." "Thank you, Senior Marshal Brother." Ling Yu cupped his hands and smiled. The black-clothed youth smiled faintly and said, "We're all from the same sect. Why are you so polite? Let's go." Immediately, the group followed behind the black-clothed youth and flew towards the depths of the Divine Palace. "All right, let me introduce myself. My name is Xing Wanli. I'm also a disciple of the Martial Arts Hall." The black-clothed youth smiled and said, Qin Feiyong said, "Qin Feiyong of the spiritual state." "Spiritual state?" Xing Wanli was stunned and asked in confusion, "Why haven't I heard of a place called the spiritual state in the imperial capital?" Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and said, "Not the imperial capital. It's one of the 9 states, the spiritual state." "So it's that place." Xing Wanli suddenly realized and asked, "You guys are all from the 9 states?" Qin Feiyong nodded. This time, the disdain between Xing Wanli's brows became even stronger. Looking at this person's expression, everyone was very unhappy but chose to endure it. After all, they were new here, and it was better to keep a low profile. Ling Yu said, Senior Martial Brother Xing, can you tell us about the Divine Palace? Of course. Our Divine Palace is composed of 7 major halls. They are the Elixir Hall, Martial Arts Hall, Resource Hall, Deacon Hall, Law Enforcement Hall, War God Hall, and the Martial Arts Treasury. Xing Wanli said. Fatso asked, what is the War God Hall? The others were also confused. Everyone knew about the Elixir Hall, Martial Arts Hall, Resource Hall, Deacon Hall, Law Enforcement Hall, and Martial Arts Treasury. Only this War God Hall. I'm not very clear about the specific situation of the War God Hall, but I heard that the War God Hall is a very terrifying place. The people inside are basically old monsters who have lived for thousands of years. Of course, there are also some young people, but without exception, any one of them is an existence that can crush all the geniuses in the imperial capital. Xing Wanli said with awe in his eyes, old monsters who have lived for thousands of years? Everyone looked at each other with shock in their hearts. Xing Wanli said again, have you heard of the Crown Prince? No. Ling Yu and the others shook their heads. However, Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows subtly. I knew you guys haven't heard of him. Xing Wanli looked at Qin Feiyang and the others indifferently and said, the Crown Prince is the son of the current emperor and the Crown Prince of the Empire. But even so, he isn't qualified to enter the War God Hall. Everyone's heart trembled. Even the Crown Prince wasn't qualified to enter. What kind of existence was the War God Hall? Don't think so much, because you guys will never be able to enter the War God Hall in your lifetime. Apart from these, our War God Hall has 2 very famous rankings. They are the Alchemy God ranking and the Martial God ranking. These 2 rankings only have 10 places. Those who can enter the rankings are the most outstanding geniuses among the disciples of our War God Hall. They are also the strongest among the disciples of our generation. So in the future, when you meet these people on the rankings, you better be honest. Of course, maybe you won't see them in your lifetime. Xing Wanli said. Why? Everyone was puzzled, because they are all monstrous geniuses, standing at the peak of the War God Hall's disciples. They never show their faces in front of others. Xing Wanli said, Alchemy God ranking, Martial God ranking. Hearing about it, everyone's heart was filled with desire. However, Qin Feiyang kept his head down, a sharp light flashing in his eyes. Next, Xing Wanli said a lot more about the War God Hall, but Qin Feiyang didn't listen to a single word. About an hour passed. In the distance, a huge object entered everyone's sight. It was a palace, completely black, occupying dozens of miles, towering into the clouds. From afar, it looked like a ferocious beast lurking there, emitting a shocking aura. That is the Martial Arts Hall. Our Martial Arts Hall has 1 million disciples, so this hall is the largest and most spectacular building in the entire imperial capital. Xing Wanli introduced. So many. Once again, everyone was deeply shocked. All the War God Halls in the 9 prefectures added together didn't even have a fifth of the number here. Xing Wanli continued, and these 1 million disciples are all war masters. Boom. As soon as these words came out, everyone felt like a bolt from the blue. Their bodies and minds trembled, and their minds rumbled. 1 million war masters' disciples. How is this possible? One had to know that in the 9 prefectures, any war master could be called a king. Take the spiritual state, for example. All the war masters, including the old man and Wang Hong, probably didn't exceed 30. But here, just the Martial Arts Hall alone had more than 1 million battle sect members. What if the Elixir Hall was added? What if the Assignment Hall and the Law Enforcement Hall were added? If the scope was expanded and the war masters in the imperial capital were added, this number was simply unimaginable. It was no wonder that it was so difficult for people from the 9 prefectures to enter the imperial capital, because the imperial capital didn't lack experts at all. It was only now that they realized the reality. These so-called monsters of the 9 prefectures were nothing in the War God Hall. They were dispensable. And here, the number of War God Hall disciples they met had also increased. But for the dozen or so unfamiliar faces like Qin Feiyang, even if they brushed past him, no one gave him a second glance. They were extremely cold. Swish. A moment later, a group of people followed Xing Wanli, and landed on the plaza in front of the martial arts hall. There were even more people coming and going in the plaza, but they were all in a hurry, giving off a cold and unsociable feeling. Every disciple of the War God Hall wants to become an expert in the limelight, so we usually don't wander around outside. If we have time, we will cultivate. And those who come out basically have something to do, Xing Wanli said. Everyone nodded in realization. It seemed like the competition here wasn't ordinary. Xing Wanli said, "Let's go. I will bring you to report to the assignment elder. He will arrange a cultivation room for you." At this moment, Lu Xingchen asked, "Senior brother Xing, how do we get to the pill hall?" And Xing Wanli was stunned. He looked at Lu Xingchen and asked, "You are an alchemist?" And Lu Xingchen nodded. Xing Wanli was surprised, but he didn't have much reaction. He turned and pointed in the opposite direction and said, "Do you see that big hall? That is the pill hall. It is opposite our martial arts hall." Everyone looked over. There was a huge ancient pagoda in the distance. It was slightly smaller than the martial arts hall, but it was still as tall as the clouds. Xing Wanli said, "The pill hall isn't far from here. You can go there yourself?" "All right." Lu Xingchen nodded. "The rest of you, follow me." Xing Wanli waved his hand and walked towards the martial arts hall's entrance. Tanwu looked at Qin Feiyang cautiously and followed closely. Ling Yu and the other three, Dong Jingyang, Shun Mei, and Ren Wushuang looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Why was this guy so absent-minded throughout the journey? But they didn't ask much. Ling Yu cupped his hands and smiled. "Brother Qin, let's meet again when we have time." And Qin Feiyang nodded. He looked at Shun Mei and Ren Wushuang and reminded them, "You have to be careful of that Xing Wanli." "Why?" The two ladies were surprised. Qin Feiyang whispered, "When this person looked at you, his eyes were a little strange. I'm worried that he has bad intentions." "I noticed it too. I even feel that he is leading the way for the two of you," Lu Xingchen said thoughtfully. "It can't be, right?" Shun Mei and Ren Wushuang looked at each other. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Anyway, it's never wrong to be cautious." The two ladies nodded. Ren Wushuang said, "Then we will be leaving. If there is anything, send us a message." And Qin Feiyang nodded. He waved his hand and smiled. "Go." Chapter 684. High up in the sky, Lu Xingchen whispered, "Brother Qin, are you thinking about the first prince?" Qin Feiyang lowered his head in silence. Fatso pursed his lips. "What's there to think about the first prince?" Lu Xingchen said, "Didn't you hear what Xing Wanli said just now? The first prince is now the crown prince." "Crown prince?" Fatso raised his eyebrows. "Moreover, the first prince must have received the emperor's approval as the crown prince and even announced it to the world. Otherwise, Xing Wanli wouldn't have dared to say it in front of us." Lu Xingchen added. Fatso looked at Qin Feiyang with concern. "Boss, are you okay? If you're unhappy, we'll find a chance to kill the first prince." Wolf King's eyes flashed coldly. Hearing this, Lu Xingchen immediately staggered and almost fell from the sky. "I didn't pull you in. What are you afraid of?" Wolf King rolled his eyes. Lu Xingchen was speechless. "Do you know what it means to be the crown prince? You're actually planning to murder him. I have to say, you're really audacious. What's the big deal?" Wolf King curled his lips in disdain. "Sigh, you're thinking too simply. The concept of a crown prince and a prince is completely different. If the first prince was still a prince, killing him wouldn't have much of an impact. But a crown prince is different. A crown prince is the future heir to the throne. Killing him is equivalent to going against the entire Great Qin Empire." However, at this point, Lu Xingchen changed the topic and said telepathically, "If you really plan to kill him, count me in." Fatso and Wolf King were stunned. Qin Feiyang also looked up at Lu Xingchen, his eyes filled with disbelief. Lu Xingchen smiled faintly. "To be honest, other than you, Qin Feiyang, I want to kill everyone from your Qin clan." "Why? Do you have a grudge against the Qin clan?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "I'm not from the capital. Why would I have a grudge against the Qin clan? I just can't stand their high and mighty attitude." Lu Xingchen smiled faintly. Qin Feiyang narrowed his eyes slightly. This reason was too far-fetched and not the least bit convincing. However, Wolf King and Fatso chose to support Lu Xingqian because they couldn't stand it either. Fatso snickered. Why else would we do it? Nonsense. Qin Feiyang glared at him fiercely and said in a deep voice, Do you think we have the ability to go against the entire great Qin Empire? Wolf King said disdainfully, What are you afraid of? As long as we do it cleanly, who would know it was us? We'll talk about this later. After everything is settled, help me find out when the Emperor appointed the first prince as the crown prince. Also, find out the first prince's current whereabouts and cultivation level, as well as all the major events that happened in the capital in the past 10 years. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. Fatso patted his chest and said, It's a piece of cake. Leave it to Fat Lord. During the conversation, the 3 men and 1 wolf arrived in front of the ancient pagoda. There was also a plaza in front of the pagoda. The people here were also in a hurry. As for their attire, it was similar to the sacred hall. The disciples of the martial arts hall wore black, while the disciples of the pill hall wore white. At the entrance of the ancient pagoda, there was a small transparent window. Through the window, they could clearly see a white-clothed old man sitting inside. The 3 men and 1 wolf walked to the window and saw the old man sitting in front of a desk with his head lowered. What was he writing? Qin Feiyang said, Elder, we are the new disciples. We are here to report. The white-clothed old man raised his head and looked at the 3 of them. He took out 3 chinkuan bags and threw them on the window. Then, he looked away and continued with his work. The 3 of them looked at each other and grabbed a chinkuan bag each. In the end, there was nothing but dozens of clothes. Lu Xingqian asked suspiciously, Elder, don't we need to test our mental strength? No need. It's fine as long as you are alchemists. As for the alchemy room, go and find it yourself. After the white-clothed old man finished speaking, he waved his hand impatiently. The 3 of them were tactful and didn't ask any more questions. They turned and entered the ancient pagoda. Are the people of the divine hall also arrogant? But as soon as they entered the ancient pagoda, Fatso couldn't help but say angrily, They have the right to be arrogant. What can you do about it? But the elixir palace here is quite humane. At least there is no restriction on the level of mental strength. Otherwise, with your level 5 mental strength, you wouldn't even be able to enter the main door, let alone have an independent alchemy room. Lu Xingqian said, TSK, who cares about the alchemy room here? Fatso looked ahead with disdain. In front of them was a quiet corridor. The corridor extended in all directions and led to the deepest part. On both sides of the corridor, there was a heavy stone door every 3 meters. Obviously, the alchemy room was behind these stone doors. Wolf King rolled his eyes and asked, Little Qinzi, what grade do you think the alchemy fire here is? Qin Feiyang thought for a while and said, The alchemy fire in the inner palace is all grade 4. The alchemy fire here should be at least grade 5. Inner palace? Are you from the 9 prefectures? Suddenly, a suspicious voice sounded behind them. The 3 of them turned around and saw a young man in white walking in from the outside. This person was about 1.75 meters tall. He had a dignified appearance, a tall and straight figure, and an extraordinary temperament. His strength was also not bad. He was a 3-star battle grandmaster. Lu Xingqian said, Senior brother, do you know about the 9 prefectures? The young man in white smiled and said, Of course, I also came from the 9 prefectures. What a coincidence. Lu Xingqian was surprised. He cupped his hands and smiled. It's an honor to meet an old friend in a foreign land. It's an honor to meet you. The young man in white also cupped his hands and smiled. May I ask which prefecture you 3 brothers are from? Lu Xingqian said, The spiritual prefecture. What about you? The young man in white smiled and said, It's really an honor to meet an old friend in a foreign land. I'm from the Cloud Prefecture. I entered the imperial capital during the last 9 prefectures tournament. Cloud Prefecture? Qin Feiyang and Fatso frowned slightly. Although the spiritual prefecture and the Cloud Prefecture were the closest among the 9 prefectures, they didn't have a good impression of the Cloud Prefecture. Fatso said, May I know your name, senior brother? The young man in white said, Imo Dong. Your surname is Imo? Fatso's pupils constricted and he smiled. Then what's your relationship with the Mo family of the Cloud Prefecture? The young man in white smiled and said, You know about the Mo family too. I'm from the Mo family. What? Fatso was dumbfounded. There was someone from the Mo family in the imperial capital? Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. Fatso pondered for a moment and asked tentatively, What's your relationship with Mo Wushin? Wushin, he's my cousin. Actually, I came out this time to pick him up, Mo Dong said. Fatso asked suspiciously, You know that he passed the 9 prefectures tournament? I don't know. It's impossible to communicate between the imperial capital and the 9 prefectures through the image crystal. The teleportation gate can't teleport either. That's why I've never contacted him in the past 10 years in the imperial capital. However, before I entered the imperial capital, he told me that he would participate in the 9 prefectures tournament this time. And with his strength, I believe that he can win. So, I calculated the time and waited outside. But after waiting for a few days, I didn't see him come. And just now, when I heard you talking about the inner hall, I knew that you're from the 9 prefectures. Because only the sacred halls of the 9 prefectures have inner halls, I wanted to ask you, Mo Dong said. I see. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 were enlightened. To be able to calculate the time and wait here, it seemed that Mo Dong and Mo Wushin's relationship was not ordinary. Fatso asked through telepathy, Boss, what do you think? Qin Feiyang said, It's impossible to hide it, because Wan Xiao and the others will say it sooner or later. Fatso said, Then let's just say it? Lu Xingchen said, Don't. We just came here. There are many things we don't know. It's not good to be hostile. Qin Feiyang thought for a while and said, That's right. Let's let him slowly find out. It'll give us some time to prepare. Understood. Fatso replied. He looked at Mo Dong and said, Mo Wushin did participate in the 9 prefectures tournament, but he was unlucky and died. What? Mo Dong's expression froze. He said, How did he die? Fatso shook his head and said, I don't know about that. Sigh. Mo Dong sighed deeply and said, The 9 Nether Yellow Springs is full of danger. Death and injury are inevitable. But if I find out who killed him, I won't forgive him. The 3 of them were shocked. It seemed that they had to get rid of this person sooner or later. Mo Dong smiled and said, Let's go. I'll bring you in and introduce the layout of the pill hall to you. Thank you. Fatso thanked him. After that, the 3 of them followed behind Mo Dong as they walked along a corridor. According to Mo Dong's introduction, the pill hall had a total of 100 floors. Each floor had 1,000 alchemy rooms. In other words, the pill hall had 100,000 alchemy rooms. Moreover, each floor of the pill hall had its own independent alchemy fire. These alchemy fires were all of the 5th grade. Fatso was stunned. He said, Doesn't that mean that there are 100 5th grade alchemy fires here? You must be shocked. When I first heard about it, I felt the same as you. I felt like a country bumpkin who had never seen the world. Mo Dong smiled bitterly. Fatso looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Boss, now we don't have to worry about the Nether Devil Flame's advancement anymore. Qin Feiyang said to himself, Indeed, we don't have to worry about it. But we can't have any ideas about these alchemy fires. Understood. Fatso smiled and turned to look at Mo Dong. He said, Senior Mo, I heard that the Divine Palace has some Dan God list. Are the people on this list in the pill hall? Yes, they are on the top floor. However, I have never seen them before. Not only me, most of the people have never seen them before. Mo Dong said. So mysterious? Fatso was surprised. Not only mysterious, but also monstrous. And very powerful. I heard that they are all existences who are about to step into the Battle Saint realm. We can only look up to these kinds of people. Mo Dong shook his head and sighed. Look up to? Qin Feiyang sneered. So what if they are powerful? So what if they are talented? Chapter 685. Mo Dong was walking in front, so he didn't notice Qin Feiyang's expression. He said, Now, you can only choose an alchemy room on the 1st floor? Why? Fatso frowned. because the alchemy rooms on the 99 floors are all occupied. However, this place is the same as the sacred hall. If you want an alchemy room, you can challenge the owner of that alchemy room. If you win, the alchemy room will belong to you. Imodong said. Fatso asked curiously, which floor are you on now? Imodong said, I'm on the second floor. Fatso's face twitched. He had been in the sacred hall for 10 years, but he had only reached the second floor. Wasn't he too useless? Imodong turned and looked at Fatso. He smiled and asked, Are you thinking that I'm useless? Am I? Nope. Fatso laughed dryly. Imodong shook his head and continued to lead the way. He sighed and said, The sacred hall isn't as simple as you think. Although on the surface, the sacred hall is a single entity, but in fact, the disciples are secretly forming factions. So here, even if you have outstanding abilities, you won't be able to reach a higher place if you don't have a backer. Do you know who has the strongest backer here? Imodong asked. Who? Fatso frowned. The disciples of the various feudal lords. In their eyes, people like us who have no power or influence are just playthings to pass the time. Imodong mocked himself. Fatso asked, So, you also joined someone else's faction? If you want to survive, you have to rely on them. I joined the faction of a marquis son. If you're willing to join, I can introduce you. Imodong smiled and said. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Forget it. We just want to cultivate quietly. Moreover, every floor of the pill hall has its own independent alchemy fire. It doesn't matter which floor we stay on. Although that's the case, there's a good saying. Man walks to the top while water flows to the bottom. No matter if it's the pill hall's disciple or the martial arts hall's disciple, all of them are trying their best to climb up. Because the higher you stand, the higher your status will be, and the more people will respect you. Imodong said. Qin Feiyang said, There's another saying that's also very good. The higher you stand, the more painful it is to fall. Ugh. Imodong was stunned. He turned to look at Qin Feiyang, shook his head, and said with a smile, You're quite an interesting person, but I'll tell you the truth. The 100 alchemy rooms in front of each floor are all controlled by various forces. I believe all of you know that the higher the alchemy room is, the better the quality of the alchemy fire. So, if you don't rely on them, even if these alchemy rooms are empty, they won't let you in. Imodong said. Qin Feiyang said, What if I insist on going in? Imodong said, Then you will face endless troubles. You won't even be able to live a peaceful day, let alone cultivate in peace. Fatso said unhappily, These people are really overbearing. It can't be helped. The divine palace is just that cruel. Imodong sighed. Qin Feiyang asked, Then who's the one controlling the first floor of the pill hall? The son of Qinwu Marquis, Feng Yun. All right. I've said everything that needs to be said. You guys can take your time to choose. As long as the stone door is open, it's an empty alchemy room. When you're done choosing, drip a drop of blood on the stone door. At that time, you can open or close the stone door with just a thought. And there's another benefit. If you don't open the door, no one can force their way in. After Imodong finished speaking, he quickened his pace and left quickly. Fatso retracted his gaze and looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Boss, do you know this Qinwu Marquis? Also, why isn't his surname Qin? Not everyone in the imperial capital has the surname Qin. Only the people in the imperial palace have the surname Qin, and this Qinwu Marquis, I know him. According to the ancient records, when the first emperor established the Great Qin Empire, there were many experts under him, but in the end, not many of them survived. On the day the Great Qin Empire was established, the first emperor rewarded those who died in battle according to their contributions in order to repay them. Among them, 100 were conferred the title of Martial Marquis. Qin Feiyang said. Fatso frowned. They're already dead. What's the point of being conferred the title of Marquis? Of course it's meaningful, because they all have descendants, and these martial marquis positions are all inherited by their descendants, and it's passed down from generation to generation. Furthermore, before the emperor left, he left behind an edict that as long as the Great Qin Empire still exists, these 100 marquis positions cannot be taken away, nor can they be removed. Marquis Qianwu is one of them, Qin Feiyang said. Fatso frowned. In that case, wouldn't these marquis have a gold medal to avoid death? That's right. In the past, no matter how big of a mistake they made, the emperors of the past would only scold them. At most, they would kill the person who made the mistake. They had never said that they would remove their marquis positions. And in the past 10,000 years, none of these marquis positions have disappeared, but no new marquis has appeared in the imperial capital. This is also the reason why the descendants of the marquis dare to act like a tyrant in the divine palace. As long as they don't do anything outrageous, the law-enforcing elders of the divine palace will turn a blind eye. Qin Feiyang said. Fatso mocked. This is really like the old saying, the people of the past plant the trees, and the people of the future enjoy the shade. If you ask me, this kind of hereditary system shouldn't have appeared. This is the edict of the first emperor, who dares to change it. Even the current emperor doesn't dare. Of course, the first emperor also did it out of good intentions. Because there are too many people who kill donkeys after they've outlived their usefulness. What if the future emperor, in order to consolidate the country, kills all these meritorious officials? That's why the first emperor left behind this edict before he left. But now, these marquis are using his good intentions as capital to flaunt their power. I'm afraid this is something the first emperor didn't expect at the time. Lu Xingqian sighed. Yes, some people just don't know how to be content. Also, if I'm not wrong, the masters behind the various forces are not the descendants of the marquis, but the claws and teeth of the villain. Then who is it? Fatso asked. You can't even think of this? Lu Xingqian rolled his eyes and said, Of course it's the princes of the great Qin Empire. That's right. Although the first prince has been named the crown prince, as long as he hasn't ascended the throne, the other princes still have a chance. And winning over the hearts of the people and eliminating dissidents is the most important thing at the moment. Qin Feiyang sneered. Why does it sound like the divine palace is a battlefield for the princes to fight for the throne? Fatso said with a frown. This place has always been an invisible battlefield of smoke and gunpowder. Because the divine palace contains all the geniuses of the great Qin Empire, it's also the cradle of the great Qin Empire's experts. Let's put it this way. Everyone here has the potential to become the future pillar of the great Qin Empire, so they naturally scramble to come here to win over talents. Even if they can't become the emperor in the end, they still have a force in their hands, Qin Feiyang said. Lu Xingqian asked, What about you? Me? There's no need for that. Fatso and Wolf King are enough. Qin Feiyang smiled confidently. Hee. Fatso and Wolf King immediately looked at Lu Xingqian proudly. You guys keep showing off. Lu Xingqian rolled his eyes at them. Of course, he didn't deny it. Because the people around Qin Feiyang had all opened the door of potential. The growth of these people far surpassed the geniuses of the divine palace. It wouldn't be long before their names appeared on the so-called alchemy god list and martial god list. In the end, just these few people would be able to shake the foundation of the great Qin Empire. Huff. Qin Feiyang took a deep breath and said with a faint smile, Let's not talk about it. Let's find the alchemy room. Fatso said domineeringly. Is there a need to find it? Let's go straight to the top floor. You'd better get rid of this idea as soon as possible. Now is different from before. In the past, I didn't have any worries and could do whatever I wanted. But now, we should keep a low profile as much as possible. I don't want to attract attention too early. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. Yes, the most important thing now is to improve our strength. Lu Xingqian nodded. Fatso said, All right, let's hide our strength and bide our time. When there's a chance in the future, we'll amaze the world. Lu Xingqian pointed to the left and said with a smile, There are a few alchemy rooms with open doors. The three of them walked over. There were a total of 5 alchemy rooms with open stone doors. And on the stone doors, there was a number, 701 to 705. Qin Feiyang pointed to the alchemy room number 701 and said with a smile, I'll take this one. As he said that, he cut his finger and a drop of blood flowed out. In the blink of an eye, the drop of blood fell on the stone door. Buzz. At that moment, a faint layer of blood light appeared on the stone door. But very quickly, the blood light dissipated. At the same time, Qin Feiyang felt that the stone door seemed to have merged with him. Fatso, once you're settled, come find me immediately. There's one more thing I have to tell you. Then, after saying something to Fatso, Qin Feiyang walked into the alchemy room. With a thought, the stone door closed. The alchemy room Fatso chose was next to Qin Feiyang's, number 702. Lu Xingqian entered the alchemy room number 703. The three alchemy rooms were the same size, 3 meters wide and very narrow. But fortunately, they were long enough, about 7 or 8 meters in length. The alchemy stone platform was designed in the innermost part, next to the wall. There was nothing else in other places. If one person lived in it, it was still quite spacious. Qin Feiyang looked around for a while, then walked to the stone platform and pressed a black button next to the stone platform. Buzz. An arm-thick alchemy fire suddenly rushed out from the center of the stone platform. The temperature of the alchemy room immediately soared. After watching for a while, Qin Feiyang turned off the alchemy fire. The nether devil flame was now a 5th-grade alchemy fire, so he didn't need the alchemy fire here at all. And this alchemy room, for him, was purely a place to hide his identity. Chapter 686. Dong. After a while, there was a knock on the door. Qin Feiyang moved his mind slightly, and the stone door quickly opened. Fatso trotted in and asked, "Boss, what else do you want to tell me?" "Sweep the medicinal herbs, especially the 9-turn dragon blood pill, small creation pill, spirit sea pill, and essence soul pill," Qin Feiyang said. "You don't have to tell me that. Fat Lord knows." But Fat Lord is thinking that the treasure pavilion in the imperial capital must have a lot of stock. If I want to sweep them all, I may not have enough gold coins on me. Fatso frowned. "Doesn't Lu Hong have more? This time, take all the savings we have over the years with you. If it's still not enough, send me a message." Qin Feiyang said. Wolf King said at this time, "Little Qin Zi, those potential pills are useless now. Can we sell them to the treasure pavilion in the imperial capital?" Fatso's eyes also lit up. Over the years, they had accumulated a lot of potential pills. If they sold them, it would not be a problem to buy half of the imperial capital, let alone sweep the medicinal herbs. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and shook his head. "These 2 pills are too powerful. I don't want to sell them unless it's a last resort. Once the potential pills appeared in the imperial capital, they would definitely be snatched by the princes in the end. Because in terms of wealth and power, no one in the imperial capital could compare to the princes. In other words, selling these 2 pills was tantamount to cultivating future enemies. He would not do such a ridiculous thing." Fatso nodded and frowned again. "Although your concerns are not wrong, have you forgotten about Wan Xiao and the others?" "Of course not. But they only know that we opened the gate of potential, but they don't know how we opened it," Qin Feiyang said. "No. You've neglected one person, the prefecture lord of Cloud State. Do you still remember what the old witch said to us when we first made a mess in the Cloud State?" Fatso reminded him. His words woke her up from her dream. Qin Feiyang's face immediately darkened. Back then, the Yunzhou prefecture master went to the spiritual state to get even with him, but before he went to see the old master, he secretly inquired about him in the city. At that time, the news that he had the potential pill had already spread to every city in the spiritual state. Therefore, it was very likely that the manor master of the Cloud State already knew about this back then. If it were someone else, he wouldn't be worried. After all, there was no deep hatred between them. But this old witch wanted nothing more than to tear him into pieces. She might really tell Wan Xiao and the others about this. Alas! Suddenly, Qin Feiyang heaved a long sigh. "Why are you sighing?" Fatso and Wolf King looked at him in confusion. "I wanted to keep a low profile, but now it seems that I can't keep a low profile for long. While there's still time, hurry up and do what I asked you to do," Qin Feiyang said. Fatso nodded. Then, Qin Feiyang entered the castle and brought out Lu Hong, the pangolin, and the black dragon snake. He glanced at Wolf King and said, "You guys go and help." I'll give you the coordinates of the treasure pavilion. The coordinates of the treasure pavilion? The 2 men and 3 beasts were stunned. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, I've lived here for 10 years after all. I know the coordinates of the treasure pavilion. They smiled. With the coordinates, it would be easier to do things. But I also know the coordinates of the first district. You guys have to inquire about the treasure pavilions of the other 9 districts. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he told Fatso the coordinates. After Fatso memorized the coordinates, he asked suspiciously, how many districts are there in the capital? 12. From the inside to the outside, they are the Imperial Palace, the Inner City, the 1st District to the 10th District. You don't need me to tell you about the Imperial Palace. And the Inner City is where we are now. Other than the shrine, the 100 Martial Marquis also live in the Inner City. As for the 1st District and the 10th District, there are also different levels. The people in the 1st District are either powerful and influential or extremely wealthy. For example, the Treasure Pavilion and the Fragrant Moon House are both located in the 1st District, and the 1st District is also the place where the royal family and the various Martial Marquis disciples go to the most. Qin Feiyang said, So many? The few of them were dumbstruck. Is there a lot? Just get used to it. You guys can go out and ask around for the details. Qin Feiyang laughed. All right, let's get busy. Fatso waved his hand and opened a teleportation door. Then, he brought Lu Hong, Wolf King, and the 3 beasts and quickly walked in. When the teleportation door disappeared, Qin Feiyang also retracted his gaze and lowered his head to ponder. At the same time, the 1st floor of the martial arts hall. In a cultivation room, Wan Xiao sat cross-legged on an old praying mat. He lowered his head and looked at the pitch-black floor. His eyes flickered. Suddenly, he stood up and his eyes flashed with a shocking cold light. Qin Feiyang, just you wait. I won't let you have an easy time. Next, he walked out of the cultivation room and walked along a corridor, heading deeper into the palace. Although the martial arts hall was bigger than the pill hall, the internal structure was similar to the pill hall. There were a total of 100 floors. Each floor had 10,000 cultivation rooms. The total number was 1,000,000. Similarly, each floor was controlled by a Martial Marquis disciple. A moment later, Wan Xiao came to the 1st cultivation room on the 1st floor. He stood in front of the door and pondered for a moment. Then, he reached out and knocked on the stone door. Rumble. Soon, the stone door opened. A young man in black entered Wan Xiao's line of sight. The young man's figure was tall and straight. He sat cross-legged on the praying mat. His face was filled with an insufferably arrogant aura. His cultivation was not bad. 3-star battle ancestor. Wan Xiao stood at the door and bowed. Greetings, Senior Martial Brother Gao. The young man sized up Wan Xiao and frowned. You are? Wan Xiao said respectfully, I am a new disciple. My name is Wan Xiao. New? The young man was stunned. A trace of disdain crept into his eyes. He said indifferently, Do you need something from me? Wan Xiao said, I want to meet Senior Martial Brother Lin Dian. I hope Senior Martial Brother Gao can introduce me. The young man frowned and asked, You want to join our camp? Yes. Wan Xiao nodded. The young man said, If it's just this, you don't have to ask Senior Martial Brother Lin Dian. I can make the decision directly. This? Wan Xiao frowned. What is this? Senior Martial Brother Lin Dian is the son of a marquis. Is he someone you can meet just because you want to? Get lost. Don't disturb my cultivation. The young man waved his hand, his face full of disdain. A trace of hostility crept into Wan Xiao's brows. Wasn't he just a 3-star battle ancestor? What was he being arrogant for? However, he hid it very well. The young man did not notice. Wan Xiao suppressed his anger and cupped his hands. Senior Martial Brother Gao, I'm looking for Senior Martial Brother Lin Dian for something else. The young man said impatiently, If you have something to say, just say it. I'll pass it on for you. Wan Xiao's hands, which were hidden in his sleeves, could not help but clench. And Yu Zhou, who dared to speak to him like this? Not to mention telling him to get lost. Unfortunately, this was not Yu Zhou. This was the Divine Temple. Even though he had a stomach full of anger, he could only hold it in. Tell me, Seeing that Wan Xiu did not say anything, the young man yelled. Wan Xiu quickly smiled and asked, I wonder if Senior Marshal Brother Gao has heard of the Door of Potential? The young man said angrily, Nonsense. Who doesn't know about the Door of Potential? Get to the point. Wan Xiu glanced at the corridor on both sides. Seeing that there was no one around, he whispered, I won't hide it from Senior Marshal Brother. I have a way to open the Door of Potential. What? The young man suddenly stood up and looked at Wan Xiu in disbelief. Wan Xiu said, I'm telling the truth. Good. I'll bring you to see Senior Marshal Brother Lin Dian immediately. Follow me. The young man's eyes trembled. He hurriedly walked out of the cultivation room and led Wan Xiu to the top floor of the martial arts hall. At the same time, in one of the cultivation rooms on the top floor of the martial arts hall, a black-clothed young man was half lying on a chair. He seemed to be recuperating with his eyes closed. And in front of this person, there was a person standing respectfully. It was Xing Wanli. The black-clothed young man said lazily, If you have something to say it quickly. Xing Wanli smiled and said, Senior Marshal Brother Caillou. On my way back to the martial arts hall, I met two good girls. Caillou said, How good are they? Xing Wanli moved closer to the black-clothed young man and whispered, They are both supreme grade. Caillou's spirit was lifted. He finally opened his eyes and said, What are their names? Xing Wanli said, One is called Shen Mei, and the other is called Ren Wushuang. Why haven't I heard of them before? Caillou thought for a moment and frowned. They are both new disciples from the 9 prefectures. Senior Marshal Brother can make a move on them without any hesitation. Xing Wanli laughed mischievously. Caillou was stunned and said disdainfully, How good can women from the 9 prefectures be? Senior Marshal Brother, I'm not talking nonsense this time. If you don't believe me, you can take a look. After Xing Wanli finished speaking, he waved his hand. Battle aura surged, and 2 beautiful figures quickly condensed. They were Ren Wushuang and Shen Mei. Looking at the 2 figures, Caillou instantly stood up. His breathing became hurried, and his eyes were filled with possessiveness. Xing Wanli smiled and said, Senior Marshal Brother Caillou, how is it? They are indeed rare supreme grade girls. Caillou licked his lips and turned to look at Xing Wanli. He said, Immediately think of a way. As long as you can help me get them, I will definitely reward you. Is there a need to think? Senior Marshal Brother, I'm not exaggerating. With your identity and status, as long as you give them some benefits, they will definitely obey you. Xing Wanli said disdainfully, That's true. How can those lowly people from the 9 prefectures see the world? Caillou nodded. Senior Marshal Brother, if you want to make a move, do it early, because they are now in the cultivation room on the 1st floor. If Lin Dian sees them, I'm afraid you won't have a share. Xing Wanli instigated. He is a piece of trash. What right does he have to snatch my women? Caillou snorted coldly and said, Go down immediately and tell them that as long as they agree to be my women and serve me well, I will guarantee them endless glory and wealth in the imperial capital. Understood. Chapter 687. What is he doing up here? Xing Wanli looked at Wan Xiu suspiciously before looking at the young man. He smiled and said, Yo, isn't this the 1st floor's little tyrant, Gao Ming? Why? Are you here to lick your master's boots again? Gao Ming raised his eyebrows and sneered. You have the nerve to talk about me. Aren't you here to lick your master's boots too? Xing Wanli said, Although I'm following Senior Brother Caillou, I'm not like some people who act like a tyrant on the 1st floor. Gao Ming said disdainfully, That's because I'm capable. So what? What can I do? You can continue to lick my master's boots. You don't know what shame is anyway. Xing Wanli smiled disdainfully and walked past Gao Ming and Wan Xiu. You're just someone's dog. What's there to be proud of? Wan Xiu sneered in his heart. He looked at Gao Ming and asked, Senior Brother Gao, who's his master? Gao Ming looked at Xing Wanli's back coldly and pointed to the stone door at the side. He whispered, It's the owner of this cultivation room. His name is Caillou, the son of Anwu Marquis. He's an old rival of our senior brother Lin Dian. I see. Wan Xiu muttered and asked carefully, Who's stronger between senior brother Lin Dian and Caillou? Nonsense. Of course, It's our senior brother Lin Dian. Why? You're asking me this now. Are you trying to lick Caillou's boots again? Gao Ming looked at him unkindly. Wan Xiu's pupils shrank. He quickly waved his hand and said, No, no. I'm just asking out of curiosity. It better not be. I don't mind telling you the truth. Those who used to be two-timing didn't have a good ending. So in this divine hall, it's best not to play tricks. Gao Ming sneered and turned to walk forward. Continue to be arrogant. I'll trample you under my feet sooner or later. Wan Xiu's eyes flashed coldly and quickly followed. Martial Arts Hall, first floor. Inside the 805 cultivation room, Ren Wushuang and Shun Mei were talking about something. Dong. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Shin Mei was slightly taken aback and asked suspiciously, who would come looking for us at this time? It could be Ling Yu and the others. Ren Wushuang smiled. With a thought, the stone door slowly opened. However, the person who entered their line of sight was not Ling Yu and the others, but Xing Wanli. Xing Wanli entered uninvited and smiled. Are the two of you used to this place? It's all right. Ren Wushuang nodded with a smile and asked, Senior Brother Xing, are you looking for us for something? There is one thing. Furthermore, this matter is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for you all. Xing Wanli smiled. Ren Wushuang said, Please speak. Senior Martial Brother Xing. We are all ears. To be honest, Senior Brother Caillou has taken a liking to the two of you. And Senior Brother Caillou is the son of the Anwu Marquis. As long as you agree to be his woman, you will immediately be able to fly to the top and become a phoenix. Don't you think this is a good thing? Xing Wanli smiled. However, Ren Wushuang's and Shun Mei's faces were already covered in a layer of frost. Sure enough, as Qin Feiyang had expected, this person had ulterior motives. Shin Mei was about to fly into a rage. Ren Wushuang's eyes flashed and reached out to stop her. He looked at Xing Wanli and smiled faintly. Senior Martial Brother Xing, do you have any sisters? Yes. Xing Wanli nodded and looked suspiciously at Ren Wushuang. He did not know why she asked this. Since there is, why not introduce them to Senior Brother Caillou? In this way, you and the Anwu Marquis will be in-laws. At that time, there will be many benefits, right? Ren Wushuang laughed. Shin Mei also burst out laughing on the spot. She nodded and said, That's right. Keep the goodies within the family. Your relationship with Senior Brother Caillou is so good. If you can become even closer, won't you be able to do whatever you want in the temple in the future? Hearing these words, Xing Wanli's face suddenly became gloomy. Don't be shameless. Sorry, your disgusting face. Leave it for others to see. You are not welcome here, Scram. Ren Wushuang said expressionlessly. Don't fail to appreciate kindness. Let me tell you, if you don't obey today in the future, you won't have a good life. A cold light surged in Xing Wanli's eyes. Shin Mei sneered. Then let's see who won't have a good life. All right, just you wait. Xing Wanli snorted and turned to leave angrily. Shin Mei immediately went forward and closed the stone door tightly. She said in disgust, This person is really disgusting. There are all kinds of birds in the forest. However, if this Caillou really makes a move on us, the consequences will be unimaginable. We have to think of a way as soon as possible. Ren Wushuang said, his brows filled with worry. We are unfamiliar with this place, and the other party is the son of a marquis. What can we do? Hearing Ren Wushuang's words, Shun Mei's heart also became heavy. After pondering for a while, Ren Wushuang sighed. We can only send a message to Feiyang and see if he has any ideas? Because after thinking about it, she thought of Qin Feiyang. After they took out the image crystal and told Qin Feiyang everything that had happened, Qin Feiyang's heart burned with anger. He actually dared to have ideas about Ren Wushuang? He was simply courting death. After comforting the two women, Qin Feiyang was silent for a moment, then walked out of the alchemy room to find Lu Xingchen. Lu Xingchen opened the stone door and looked at Qin Feiyang with a gloomy face. He asked suspiciously, What's wrong? Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, Trouble is coming. Come in and talk. Lu Xingchen frowned and retreated to the side. After Qin Feiyang went in, Lu Xingchen looked at the corridor on both sides, then closed the stone door and turned to look at Qin Feiyang, asking, What trouble? Qin Feiyang said, originally, I didn't want to disturb you, but after thinking about it, I still need to tell you. What is it? Lu Xingchen frowned. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, someone is having ideas about Shan Mei and Ren Wushuang, and just a while ago, they were blatantly threatening them. What? Lu Xingchen's brows suddenly crept up with a trace of hostility, saying, who? Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed slightly. Hearing that Shan Mei was in trouble, Lu Xingchen had such a big reaction. It seemed that he really cared about Shan Mei. Xing Wanli, but not himself. It's the person behind him, the son of Marquis Anwu, Kai Yu. I know this person. He's more than 20 years older than me. When I was a child in the imperial capital, I saw him a few times, but I didn't have a good impression of him. Qin Feiyang said. What do you mean? Lu Xingchen was suspicious. He's lascivious by nature, wanting to possess a slightly beautiful woman and throwing her away when he's tired of her. He's a typical dandy scum. But back then, he hadn't entered the divine hall yet. After so many years, he should have changed, but I didn't expect him to still be like this. Qin Feiyang sneered. The son of Marquis Anwu? Lu Xingchen raised his eyebrows. If it was just an ordinary disciple, he wouldn't care. But the other party was the son of Marquis Anwu, with a high position and great influence, so he had to act carefully. Lu Xingchen asked, what did you say to Shan Mei and the others? Qin Feiyang said, I told them not to worry. I'll think of a way to deal with it. You have a way? Lu Xingchen's eyes lit up. Qin Feiyang was speechless. I was just comforting them. If I really had a way, I wouldn't have come to you. Lu Xingchen's eyes turned cold, saying, if he really dares to make a move on Shan Mei, I guarantee that he'll die without an intact corpse, even if he's the son of Marquis Anwu. Qin Feiyang was stunned and asked curiously, can you tell me? What's your relationship with Shan Mei now? Lu Xingchen was silent for a while and sighed, it's not a secret, so there's no harm in telling you. In fact, I really like her now, but because of what happened in the past, she can't accept me. Really? Qin Feiyang looked at him doubtfully. Of course. Ever since I came back from the dead, I've never knelt to anyone. She's the first. But she just won't forgive me. I really have a headache now. I don't know what to do to move her again. Lu Xingchen's heart was bitter. Qin Feiyang said indifferently, this is the result of your own actions. Who's to blame? Yes. Who can I blame? I can only blame myself. I was stupid back then. I didn't know how to cherish such a good woman. Lu Xingchen sighed deeply, his face full of regret. Qin Feiyang scanned Lu Xingchen's face and couldn't find any traces of deception. It seemed that Lu Xingchen wasn't lying. He patted Lu Xingchen's shoulder and said with a smile, as long as you're sincere, I'll support you. But if you play any tricks, don't blame me for falling out with you. Don't worry, I've already missed it once. I won't miss it a second time. Lu Xingchen forced a smile. Qin Feiyang said, now, let's discuss how to resolve this matter. Lu Xingchen nodded, then suddenly said, wait, since you know about my relationship with Shan Mei, shouldn't you also tell me about your relationship with Ren Wushuang? Qin Feiyang said with a smile, she and I are purely siblings. Siblings? Lu Xingchen was stunned and asked, when did this happen? Very long ago. At that time, I hadn't gone to the capital yet. Qin Feiyang said. Lu Xingchen said in realization, no wonder you take care of her so much. So this is the relationship. She also took care of me when I was weak. You can say that she treats me like a younger brother. So, I will never allow anyone to hurt her. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a cold light. Lu Xingchen said, so that's why you always targeted me back then? Qin Feiyang glanced at him and said indifferently, that's what you deserve. Well, it's all my fault. Lu Xingchen smiled bitterly. At this moment, there was no hostility between the two. They were like old friends who had been together for many years. Then, the two of them began to discuss in low voices. In the blink of an eye, half an hour passed. Dong! All of a sudden, there was a deafening knock on the door outside. The two of them looked up at the stone door at the same time. Lu Xingchen frowned and said, it seems to be the stone door on your side. Who would be looking for you with such a big commotion? Usually, the knocking on the door wouldn't be so loud, unless the other party had ill intentions. I don't know. Chapter 688. Outside his alchemy room, two young men stood side by side. It was Wan Xiao and Gao Ming. Lu Xingchen walked out. When he saw Wan Xiao, he couldn't help but frown and send a sound transmission. What is he doing here? It's definitely nothing good. Qin Feiyang secretly sneered. At the same time, Wan Xiao also pointed at Qin Feiyang and said in a low voice, "Senior brother Gao, he is Qin Feiyang." Gao Ming glanced at Qin Feiyang indifferently, then looked at Lu Xingchen and shouted, "This has nothing to do with you. Go back to your alchemy room." So arrogant? Lu Xingchen raised his eyebrows. This person's cultivation was only a 3-star war sect. A mere 3-star war sect was already so arrogant. What was he relying on? Thinking of this, Lu Xingchen's heart skipped a beat, and he asked, "Brother Qin, could he be Caillou?" "No," Qin Feiyang replied. "Then who is he? Caillou's lackey?" Lu Xingchen frowned. "It should be," Qin Feiyang muttered, his gaze falling on Wan Xiao, and said, "Not bad. You've just arrived at the temple, and you've already found a backer?" Wan Xiao did not answer, his face rather gloomy. Because Qin Feiyang's words were obviously mocking him for currying favor, Qin Feiyang sneered and looked at Gao Ming. "If you have something to say, say it." Gao Ming teased, "Are you sure you want to say it here?" Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows, and an uneasy premonition arose in his heart. Gao Ming's words also had a hidden meaning. Lu Xingchen retreated to the side and said with a faint smile, "Since it's hard to say, then let's talk in my alchemy room." "All right." Gao Ming nodded and swaggered into Lu Xingchen's alchemy room with Wan Xiao. Looking at Wan Xiao, who was flaunting his prowess and relying on his master's power, Qin Feiyang's brows tightly knitted together as he said to himself, "Why did you save such a trash in the first place? How would I know that he's so spineless?" Lu Xingchen was also very angry. Qin Feiyang glanced at him, then turned around and entered the alchemy room. "Wan Xiao, wake up. If this continues, I will kill you with my own hands." Lu Xingchen muttered to himself and walked into the alchemy room. With a thought, the stone door quickly closed. Qin Feiyang looked at Gao Ming and said, "Speak." Gao Ming said, "Let me introduce myself first. I am Gao Ming, the chief of the first floor of the martial arts hall." "Overlord?" Qin Feiyang's face twitched. A small 3-star combat grandmaster actually called himself the chief of the first floor of the martial arts hall. Wasn't his skin too thick? Why didn't he blush when he said such big words? Qin Feiyang didn't understand and said, "Senior brother Gao, I want to ask, who gave you the courage to call yourself the chief of the martial arts hall?" Before Gao Ming could speak, Wan Xiao said first, "I'm afraid that I will scare you if I tell you." "So scary?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and said jokingly, "I really want to know. Hurry up and say it to scare me." Gao Ming frowned and laughed. "Kid, you're very arrogant." Qin Feiyang quickly waved his hand and said, "No, no. Compared to arrogance, I'm not even 1/10,000th of you, senior brother Gao. You don't know what's good for you." Gao Ming's eyes darkened and said word by word, "Listen carefully. The person behind me is senior brother Lin Dian." Lin Dian? Qin Feiyang was stunned and thought carefully. Soon, he remembered that this was another martial marquis disciple. Seeing this, Wan Xiao thought that Qin Feiyang was really scared and said sarcastically, "You can continue to be arrogant." Lu Xingchen said angrily, "You're licking your face and running to be someone else's dog. Do you still think it's honorable?" Wan Xiao was embarrassed and angry. He gritted his teeth and said, "What did you say? Say it again if you dare." Of course, this was not honorable. To him, it was a stain that could not be erased in his life. But did he have a choice? No. In order to survive, in order to take revenge on Qin Feiyang, he could only put down his pride and curry favor with others. Lu Xingchen looked at Wan Xiao indifferently and said, "I only want to tell you one thing. A person must have a backbone. If you don't even have a backbone, what's the difference between you and a beast?" "Shut up." But before he finished speaking, Gao Ming shouted coldly. He glanced at Lu Xingchen gloomily and said with a sinister smile, "You have a backbone, don't you?" Lu Xingchen scolded Wan Xiao, which was equivalent to scolding him. because he also put down his pride and worked like a horse for Lin Dian. So, hearing Lu Xingqian's words, he felt as if someone had stepped on his tail, and he was extremely angry. But facing Gao Ming's cold eyes, Lu Xingqian was unmoved and said indifferently, "Did I scold you? I don't think so. Then why are you talking so much?" Crack. Gao Ming clenched his fists and stared at Lu Xingqian. His joints made ear-piercing sounds. "What's the situation now? Are you going to kill me?" Lu Xingqian looked at Gao Ming playfully. The temple had rules that forbade private fights. Although the disciples of the various martial marquises had formed their own cliques here, they absolutely did not dare to break this rule. Not to mention this Gao Ming. Moreover, if they really fought, Lu Xingqian had full confidence that he could crush this person. Wan Xiu stood at the side and looked at Gao Ming without the slightest intention of stopping him. Because, whether it was Qin Feiyang, Lu Xingqian, or Gao Ming, they were all people he wanted to get rid of. He couldn't wait for the three to fight and be killed by the people of the law enforcement hall. But in the end, he was disappointed. Gao Ming didn't make a move. What a joke. After all, he was an old disciple of the temple. How could he have no sense of propriety? Phew. Gao Ming took a deep breath and looked at Qin Feiyang. "Let's not talk nonsense. I came to find you to give you a chance to make a meteoric rise." "You're so kind." Qin Feiyang was surprised. Gao Ming said, "Senior brother Lin Dian said that as long as you hand over the potential pill formula, you will be his brother in the future. Not to mention that you can do whatever you want in the temple. At least no one will dare to provoke you." Qin Feiyang's heart skipped a beat. The thing he was worried about had happened. He pretended to be confused and asked, "What potential pill? Why haven't I heard of it?" Wan Xiu sneered. "Stop pretending." "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "Before coming to the capital, the Yunzhou prefecture master came to me and told me personally that you can refine a pill that can open the door of potential. I was very surprised when I heard about it. So, I asked the Yunzhou prefecture master for the coordinates and sneaked into the capital of your spiritual state. After I asked around carefully, there really is such a thing as the potential pill. Also, I heard that you can refine a pill that can allow a war emperor to break through several realms at once." Wan Xiu sneered. "Heard about it." Qin Feiyang's eyes suddenly flashed with a shocking cold light. Wan Xiu panicked and didn't dare to look directly at him. Gao Ming stood in front of Wan Xiu and looked at Qin Feiyang. "Are you still going to deny it?" Qin Feiyang glanced at Gao Ming and said indifferently, "Get out of the way." Qin Feiyang's tone was very calm, but in Gao Ming's ears, it seemed to carry a great pressure that made Gao Ming panic. This situation was very difficult for Gao Ming to accept. The other party was just a lowly person from the spiritual state, and whether it was strength or status, he was far superior to the other party. What was he afraid of? Qin Feiyang's eyes surged with a cold light as he said word by word, "I told you to get out of the way. Didn't you hear me? What if I don't?" Gao Ming straightened his back and stared at Qin Feiyang arrogantly. But in fact, the fear in his heart was even stronger. He felt that the man in front of him was like a beast that was gradually awakening. Swoosh. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang took a step forward. Seeing this, the flustered Gao Ming's heart suddenly skipped a beat, and he instinctively retreated to the side. Seeing Gao Ming in such a state, Wan Xiu couldn't help but feel nervous. Because he knew Qin Feiyang too well, this was a lawless lord. Qin Feiyang looked at Wan Xiu again and said, "Who else knows about this?" This time, the people who came to the capital. Ben knows. He couldn't even speak clearly. It was obvious how scared Wan Xiu was at this moment. Qin Feiyang said, "Did you hear it from the Yunzhou mansion master?" Wan Xiu nodded. Qin Feiyang clenched his hands, and his eyes flashed with murderous intent. This old witch really deserved to die. Lu Xingqian looked at Qin Feiyang and transmitted his voice, "Brother Qin, don't be rash." "Don't worry, I haven't lost my mind yet." Qin Feiyang responded and looked at Gao Ming indifferently. "Go back and tell Lin Dian that I have the recipe for the potential pill, but if he wants me to hand it over, let's see if he has the ability." Gao Ming was immediately furious and shouted, "Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Get lost." Qin Feiyang roared. He definitely wouldn't be nice to such a person. "Okay, just you wait." Gao Ming left a harsh sentence and left angrily with Wan Xiao. Lu Xingchen sighed. Brother Qin, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have pleaded for Wan Xiao. This matter is ultimately the fault of the Yunzhou mansion master. This damn old witch, I will never let her go. Qin Feiyong snorted coldly. Lu Xingchen sighed. It won't be that easy to kill her now, but there will be a chance sooner or later. The most important thing now is to think about how to get through this difficult time. Qin Feiyong lowered his head and pondered. Lu Xingchen said, Why don't we do it according to the plan we discussed earlier? Qin Feiyong frowned and shook his head. I have to think about it. Okay then, think about it. But let me tell you, this may be the only way. Of course, you can also hide in the alchemy room and not come out, but I believe that with your pride, you won't do that. Lu Xingchen smiled. The situation has already developed to this point. What pride do you have left? Qin Feiyong shook his head and returned to alchemy room 701. He closed the stone door and pondered alone. I'm still not strong enough. If I had the strength of the current emperor, why would I hide here? A moment later, Qin Feiyong raised his head and sighed. He entered the ancient castle, opened the 6-word divine formula, and continued to copy the first stroke of the kill word formula. The kill word formula had a total of 7 strokes. As long as he copied all of them, his cultivation could break through to the 8-star battle grandmaster, and he was only 2 steps away from the battle saint. At that time, with his trump card, although he couldn't compete with the experts of the Imperial Palace, he could be considered a hero among the disciples of the Divine Hall. Martial Arts Hall. In a cultivation room. You can't even do such a small thing. What's the use of you? A young man in black robes shouted angrily at Gao Ming and Wan Xiao. This person was Lin Dian. Chapter 689. Gao Ming said, Senior brother Lin Dian, you can't blame me and Wan Xiao for this. It's Qin Feiyong who is too arrogant. He didn't even put us in his eyes. Yeah, not to mention us, even you, Senior brother Lin Dian, are beneath his notice. Wan Xiao added fuel to the fire. Lin Dian frowned and said, He dares to be so arrogant? He's more than arrogant. He even said that even if you kneel in front of him and beg him, he wouldn't give you the pill formula. Wan Xiao said. And? Gao Ming turned and looked at Wan Xiao suspiciously. Why didn't he hear Qin Feiyong say those words back then? However, when Wan Xiao gave him a signal, he understood. At this moment, Lin Dian looked at Gao Ming and asked, He really said that? And he did. Gao Ming nodded without hesitation. Bastard. Lin Dian was furious. He stood up and said, Lead the way. I want to meet him personally. Gao Ming and Wan Xiao looked at each other. They quickly turned and ran out of the cultivation room. They sneered in their hearts. Qin Feiyong, you're dead this time. Just you wait. As the son of a martial marquis, Lin Dian had a noble status. Hence, when he walked out of the cultivation room, he caused a commotion in the martial arts hall. Where is he going? His expression is a bit ugly. Which unlucky person offended him this time? Let's go and take a look. For a moment, everyone who met Lin Dian followed behind him curiously and rushed towards the pill hall. Lin Dian, are you planning to cause trouble in my pill hall? When Lin Dian arrived at the entrance of the pill hall, the white-haired old man sitting behind the transparent window immediately raised his head and looked at Lin Dian unkindly. Lin Dian was very honest in front of this old man. He cupped his hands and said, Elder, you misunderstood. I'm only here to look for a friend. Elder, please make an exception. Sure, but remember, don't break the rules of the Divine Hall, the white-haired old man said meaningfully, then lowered his head and continued with his work. With his eyesight, how could he not see that Lin Dian had come with ill intentions? But as long as no one died, he couldn't be bothered to care. Thank you, Elder. Lin Dian cupped his hands in thanks, then led Gao Ming and Wan Xiao inside. Those who wanted to join in the fun also wanted to go in. But at this moment, the white-haired old man shouted without raising his head, Who gave you the right to enter? Scram. Upon hearing this, the people who had come to join in the fun shrank their necks and turned to flee. However, they didn't leave. They stood at the plaza far away and looked at the pill hall curiously. Very soon, Lin Dian and the other two arrived outside Pill Refining Room 701. However, no matter how the three of them knocked on the door, Qin Feiyong did not respond. This made Lin Dian very angry. One had to know. He was the son of a martial marquis. Usually, no matter how many people tried to curry favor with him, he was too lazy to even look at them. Now, he had personally paid a visit, but he had been turned away? This was simply a slap to his face. However, no matter how angry he was, he couldn't break into the Pill Refining Room to settle the score with Qin Feiyong, nor did he dare to make a big deal out of it. After saying a few harsh words, he brought Wan Qiu and Shan Huang back with disappointment. However, this grudge had been formed. Similarly, Xing Wanli, who was driven out by Ren Wushuang and Shen Huang, also added fuel to the fire in front of Caillou. Without a doubt, Caillou was also furious. He personally went to look for Ren Wushuang and Shen Mei, but the result was the same as Lin Dian. He was turned away. Actually, this was what Lu Xingchen told them to do. Since they couldn't afford to offend him, they could just hide. At most, they would just stay in the cultivation room and not go out. What could they do to them? Smash the cultivation room's stone door and force their way in? Do they dare? Time flew by. 3 days later, Fatso, Lu Hong, Wolf King, Black Dragon Snake, and Pangolin finally returned. Inside the castle, Qin Feiyong looked at them and smiled. How's the harvest? Full of rewards. Fatso smiled, took out a Chinquan bag, and threw it to Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong caught it in his hand and sank his mind into it. He was really shocked. It was full of medicinal herbs. We didn't count how many there are. However, except for the general pavilion in the first district, the other 9 districts have been ransacked by us, Fatso said. Qin Feiyong was slightly stunned and asked suspiciously, the general pavilion has the most medicinal herbs. Why didn't you buy them? Lu Hong pouted and complained. It's all Fatso's fault. Fatso also laughed awkwardly. What's going on? Qin Feiyong looked at the two suspiciously. At first, when he heard that there was a big deal, the steward of the general pavilion was quite enthusiastic. But this damned Fatso directly waved his hand and said that he wanted to buy all the medicinal herbs in the treasure pavilion. As soon as he heard this, the steward of the general pavilion turned hostile on the spot and directly kicked us out. Lu Hong said. Qin Feiyong's face twitched and he looked at Fatso helplessly. I told you to keep a low profile. Why didn't you listen? Fatso said aggrievely. Fat Lord didn't say anything wrong. We were going to buy medicinal herbs. It's good to buy medicinal herbs, but with your tone, who can stand it? Besides, you are all unfamiliar faces and your cultivation is not very strong. And the total value of the medicinal herbs in the general pavilion is immeasurable. The steward will naturally think that you don't have the financial resources. After hearing your words, of course he will treat you like a lunatic and kick you out. Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes. Fatso still had the ability to do things, but he was too arrogant. But fortunately, the medicinal herbs of the other branches were all in hand, so it was not too much of a loss. Fatso also knew that he was in the wrong and did not continue to quibble. He smiled and said, I will pay attention next time. Okay, everyone, quickly organize the medicinal herbs. Qin Feiyong smiled. In fact, he did not mean to blame Fatso. He just wanted Fatso to pay attention in the future. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and looked at Fatso and asked, How many gold coins do we have left? Fatso thought for a moment and said, There are still more than 5 billion. Fat Lord roughly calculated that we spent hundreds of billions just to buy medicinal herbs this time. Worth it. Qin Feiyong nodded without hesitation and said, Change your appearance and go to the general pavilion again. You must get the medicinal herbs of the 9-turn dragon blood pill. But, Fatso frowned, wanting to say something. Qin Feiyong laughed. If you don't have enough gold coins, send me a message and I'll think of a way. All right. Fatso nodded, carefully looked at Qin Feiyong, and asked suspiciously, Boss, why is there a trace of worry on your face? Sigh. Originally, I wanted to keep a low profile, but before I could catch my breath, a lot of trouble came knocking on my door. How can I not be worried? Qin Feiyong sighed. What trouble? Everyone frowned. Qin Feiyang briefly told them about Caillou and Lindian. Damn it, they are courting death. Wolf King immediately said angrily. Fatso said, we should have killed that old witch in Yunzhou. Not that I want to pour cold water on you, but do you have the strength to do so? Lu Hong rolled her eyes and looked at Qin Feiyang. Then what's the plan you and Lu Xingchen discussed? Qin Feiyang said, he wants me to join the first prince. What? The 2 men and 3 beasts were dumbfounded. He knows your relationship with the first prince, and he still came up with such a bad idea. Isn't it obvious that he has bad intentions? Wolf King said angrily, it's not a bad idea. The first prince is now the crown prince, and he has more power than the other princes. If we really go and seek refuge with him, small fries like Lindian and Caillou wouldn't dare to provoke us in the future even if they had the guts. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. The fatty said, you're right, but isn't this a little too embarrassing? What's your plan? Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and said, I'm going to do as Lu Xingchen said. What? Fatso and the others looked at each other. Who knew Qin Feiyang better than them? It was impossible for him to do such a spineless thing. There must be a reason. To be honest, I'm not very willing. But if I have a good relationship with the first prince, I can get a lot of information about the imperial palace from him. Most importantly, I miss my mother too much and want to go to the imperial palace to see her. And with my current status, it's impossible to sneak into the imperial palace, especially the harem where my mother is. Even the marquises are not qualified to enter. But the princes are different. Their mothers all live in the harem and can come and go freely. Qin Feiyang was melancholy. As a son, it was so difficult to see his biological mother. What a sad life. Fatso said, so, you chose the first prince? Yes. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will be victorious. The first prince is the biggest threat to me. So, I have to get close to him and understand him. But I won't be like Wan Qiu, who licked his face and asked for protection. I want to wait for him to come to me and beg me to be his guest. The corners of Qin Feiyang's mouth lifted slightly, forming a cold and arrogant arc. Fatso thought for a while and said with a smile, if that's the case, Fat Lord won't object. All right, you do as you see fit. Fat Lord will go and get busy. Qin Feiyang nodded. Fatso opened a portal and quickly left. Qin Feiyang looked at Lu Hong and asked, how's the investigation of the matter I asked you to do? It's all clear. The first prince was appointed as the crown prince 5 years ago. He lives in the imperial palace all year round. But his cultivation is not very good. It's said that he's only a 5-star combat emperor. As for the rest, the imperial capital has been very peaceful for more than 10 years. Nothing major has happened. Lu Hong said, very good. The first prince is only 8 or 9 years older than me, and at that time, when I was expelled from the imperial capital, he was only a 5-star martial ancestor. To be able to break through to the 5-star combat emperor in these 10 years is already very heaven-defying. I'm afraid that the emperor spent a lot of effort to cultivate him. Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile, that's funny. A person who was personally cultivated by the emperor is only a 5-star combat emperor. And you, a person who relied on yourself all the way, have already broken through to the War Master level. I wonder what expression the emperor will have when he knows about this. Lu Hong covered her mouth and laughed. Wolf King chuckled and added, and his cultivation was crippled, which delayed him for 5 years. In other words, little Qinzi really started cultivating when he was 15. That's right. Lu Hong nodded and said with a smile, I believe that not only the emperor, but also the princes and dukes will have very interesting expressions. Then let's wait and see. Chapter 690. Martial Arts Hall. Lindian sat on a chair, looked at Wan Qiu and Gao Ming in front of him, and asked, how is it? In the past 3 days, Qin Feiyang hasn't walked out of the alchemy room. We can't find a chance at all. Gao Ming shook its head, feeling quite distressed. That damn bastard. I don't believe he'll hide in there for the rest of his life. Lindian was furious when he heard this. Wan Qiu said cautiously, I'm guessing he'll really hide in the alchemy room and not come out. Lin Dian also had a headache and asked, "Then does he have any special friends?" "Yes. The people of the spiritual state have a good relationship with him, but the best is still Ren Wushuang." Wan Xiu said, "Ren Wushuang?" Lin Dian frowned and asked suspiciously, "Who is this person?" "This person is the granddaughter of the spiritual state mansion master. She's quite pretty, but she's too stubborn. I went to her yesterday and wanted to use her to threaten Qin Feiyang, but no matter what I said, she wouldn't open the door. I also heard that Caillou also has designs on this Ren Wushuang, but he was also rejected in the end." Wan Xiu said, "Caillou?" Lin Dian lowered his head, pondered for a while, and sneered. "Caillou has seen countless women, and he doesn't like ordinary goods at all. This woman must be superb for him to take a fancy to. What does she look like? Let me see." Wan Xiu waved his hand, and a phantom quickly appeared. Lin Dian sized up Ren Wushuang's phantom, licked his lips, and chuckled. "She's really a femme fatale." Gao Ming had an idea and said, "Senior brother, do you want me to bring her to you?" Lin Dian said disdainfully, "Even Caillou was rejected. Do you think you can get her to walk out of the cultivation room with your little ability?" Gao Ming smiled embarrassedly. Lin Dian said, "Although this woman is not bad-looking, the potential pill is more important. We cannot waste time on her." Wan Xiu added, "We still have to hurry, otherwise if the other Martial Marquis disciples receive the news, they will definitely look for Qin Feiyang." "Yes." Lin Dian nodded. This was what he was most worried about. The potential pill was extremely tempting. Once it was exposed to the world, not just the Hall of Gods, but the entire capital would be in an uproar. Gao Ming asked, "Then, does senior apprentice brother Lin Dian have any brilliant plans?" "You still have the nerve to ask me? Don't you usually boast that you're very smart? Why are you so useless at critical moments?" Lin Dian said furiously. Hearing this, Gao Ming's heart was filled with bitterness. The other party was hiding in the pill-forging room, refusing to come out. He couldn't even meet him, so what could he do? Even if he had a way, he wouldn't be able to use it. Lin Dian glanced at Gao Ming coldly, then looked at Wan Xiu and said, "You know Qin Feiyang better than we do. Tell me, how should we deal with him?" Wan Xiu sighed. "To be honest, this person is unmoved by force or persuasion. It's not easy to deal with him." Lin Dian frowned. "He doesn't have a weakness?" "Yes. His weakness is the people closest to him. This is also his only weakness. However, other than Ren Wushuang, everyone else is hiding in his ancient castle. There's no chance at all." Wan Xiu said, "Ancient castle?" Lin Dian was stunned and asked, "What ancient castle?" Wan Xiu said, "It's a spatial treasure that can hide in. He dares to be so unscrupulous precisely because of this ancient castle." Spatial treasure. Lin Dian's gaze trembled. This lowly person from the spiritual state actually had such a treasure? Gao Ming's eyes were also filled with disbelief. "Senior apprentice brother Lin Dian, should we ask him to come out?" "This?" Lin Dian frowned. Wan Xiu glanced at the two suspiciously. "Who is this he?" Gao Ming continued, "If he comes out with his identity, I think Qin Feiyang would be eager to curry favor with him. How would he dare to act rashly? If he comes out, it'll be a piece of cake." "But," Lin Dian was hesitant. Gao Ming said, "I know that this will make us look incompetent, but there's no other way now." Wan Xiu asked telepathically, "Senior apprentice brother Gao, who are you talking about?" Gao Ming said to himself, "A terrifying person, the current 13th prince." "What?" Wan Xiu's body and mind trembled. "I'll tell you the truth. The masters behind the various forces are not senior apprentice brother Lin Dian and the others, but the princes of the imperial palace. We belong to the 13th prince's camp." Gao Ming replied telepathically. Hearing this, the shock in Wan Xiu's heart could not be any greater. Princes, those are the high and mighty sons of the imperial emperor. Every single one of them is a dragon amongst men. Even the various martial marquises have to greet them respectfully. He never thought that the divine palace would be so complicated. "All right, finally." Lin Dian finally made a decision and said, "I'll immediately send a message to the 13th prince. You two continue to guard the Pill Palace. Once Qin Feiyang appears, inform me immediately." "Yes." Wan Xiao and Gao Ming replied respectfully and quickly left the cultivation room. At the same time, outside the Pill Palace, a white-clothed woman descended on the plaza. She looked to be around 30 years old, but her figure was very good. She was still charming and her aura was unfathomable. Greetings, Palace Master. As soon as she appeared, the disciples of the Pill Palace who were passing by immediately stopped and bowed to greet her. Moreover, the white-haired old man who was sitting behind the transparent window also hurriedly ran out. He stood in front of the white-clothed woman and bowed to her. The white-clothed woman asked, 3 days ago, did a little guy called Qin Feiyang come? Qin Feiyang? The white-haired old man thought for a while and nodded. There is indeed a person called Qin Feiyang. What's wrong? Did he do something wrong? The white-clothed woman said, Bring me to see him. The white-haired old man stuttered for a while and said with a bit of panic, Palace Master, I also don't know which alchemy room he is in. You don't know? The white-clothed woman frowned and said angrily, As the Pill Palace's managing elder, you don't even know which alchemy room the disciple is in. Tell me, what is he doing all day? The white-haired old man lowered his head. His old face was filled with panic. The white-clothed woman said, I'll give you 100 breaths to find out. If you can't find out, you can go to the law enforcement palace and stay there for a few days. As soon as he heard the law enforcement palace, the white-haired old man's eyes trembled. The panic on his face became even stronger. The white-clothed woman shouted, What are you waiting for? Yes, yes, yes. I'll go now. The white-haired old man quivered and quickly ran into the Pill Palace. Not even 100 breaths had passed. The white-haired old man hurriedly ran out again and said, Palace Master, Qin Feiyang is in alchemy room number 701. I'll lead the way for you. No need. I can go by myself, the white-clothed woman said indifferently and walked into the Pill Palace. However, when she reached the door, she suddenly turned her head and looked at the white-haired old man. Restrain yourself? Yes, yes, yes. I'll definitely restrain myself. The white-haired old man nodded continuously. His forehead was already covered in cold sweat. When the white-clothed woman entered the Pill Palace and disappeared, he let out a sigh of relief. However, he was also puzzled. This palace master rarely showed herself. Why did she suddenly appear now and look for a disciple who just entered the divine palace? Alchemy room number 701. Qin Feiyang was in the ancient castle. He was concentrating on copying the kill formula. Dong! Suddenly, a series of knocks could be heard in the ancient castle. Lu Hong, who was arranging the medicinal ingredients, frowned slightly and said, It's that Lin Dian again? Ignore him. Qin Feiyang said without turning his head. Qin Feiyang, I'm the palace master of the Pill Palace. Please come out. However, before he could finish his sentence, a very calm voice could be heard in the ancient castle again. Immediately, Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Lu Hong said in surprise, Why is the palace master of the Pill Palace here? Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed and said, I just came to the divine palace. I'm not famous. It's impossible for her to look for me. Unless, Wolf King asked, Unless what? Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, Unless she knows that I can concoct the potential pill, then what should we do? Lu Hong, Wolf King, and the other two beasts were a little anxious. No matter how high Lin Dian's status was, he was only a disciple of the divine palace. He had to follow the rules here. However, the palace master of the Pill Palace was different. She was one of the leaders of the divine palace. The entire Pill Palace was under her jurisdiction. She had the right to make Qin Feiyang open the door. If Qin Feiyang didn't open the door, even if she broke the stone door and barged in, no one would dare to question her. Because she had the right. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. He suddenly smiled and said, Don't panic. I'll take care of it. After saying that, Qin Feiyang left the ancient castle and appeared in the alchemy room. Then, with a thought, the stone door slowly opened. When the stone door was fully opened, the white-clothed woman came in uninvited. She stood in front of Qin Feiyang and looked at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang also looked at the white-clothed woman. He bowed and said, Greetings, Palace Master. The white-clothed woman nodded and asked, "You're Qin Feiyong?" "Yes, I am," Qin Feiyong replied respectfully. The white-clothed woman said, "Close the door?" "Yes." With a thought from Qin Feiyong, the stone door automatically closed. "I don't like to beat around the bush. I heard that you've opened the gate of potential. Can you show me your potential imprint?" The white-clothed woman said. As expected, Qin Feiyong's heart trembled, and he straightforwardly pulled open the clothes on his chest. Because the other party had obviously come prepared, there was no point in hiding it. Looking at the potential imprint on Qin Feiyong's chest, the white-clothed woman's eyes flashed, and she asked, "Which level have you opened?" Qin Feiyong said truthfully, "The 5th level." "The 5th level?" Shock appeared on the white-clothed woman's face. Originally, she thought that Qin Feiyong would at most open the 2nd or 3rd level, but she never thought that he would have already opened the 5th level. In other words, from the extreme warrior realm to the extreme war emperor realm, this child had not left behind any of the gates of potential. Qin Feiyong was about to close his clothes, but the white-clothed woman suddenly reached out her hand and said, "Wait." Qin Feiyong frowned without leaving a trace, because the white-clothed woman's gaze had shifted to the concentric knot. The white-clothed woman looked at the knot curiously and asked suspiciously, "What kind of imprint is that?" Qin Feiyong had an idea and laughed. "This is a birthmark. I was born with it." "Heart-shaped birthmark?" The white-clothed woman was stunned for a moment and said with emotion, "There are really all kinds of strange things in this world." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.